Seeing none. Confirmation minutes. Are the minutes for Thursday, September 12th carried? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to jump right into things. We have, I know, councillors with questions and some delegations and presentations on each of the items. The first one is 4.1, which is an inquiry that we've carried into this meeting. Seniors ride free TRANSPO. I know Councillor Carr had some questions on this one. So, Councillor. No, the delegation for this one is withdrawn. Yeah, so if you're ready, Councillor Carr.
Hi, yeah, thanks very much. I just, I wanted to lift this inquiry today because I want to get this issue on the table for discussion as we contemplate any decisions going forward. I know we presently have a transit long-range financial plan working group that's looking at mitigation levers and options with respect to our financial situation. And that includes such thing as, you know, an equity lens when we look at passes. It includes some things such as, you know, looking at other sources of revenue, advocating for additional funding from seniors levels of government. And I want to make sure that we keep the issue of TRANSPO and OC TRANSPO equity between the two on the table. I'm deeply concerned about discrepancies that exist in the provision of transit service between those who rely on TRANSPO and are dependent on TRANSPO and those who rely on conventional service. And my understanding is that even though we have accessibility and human rights legislation, the technical reason we're not subject to any challenge in terms of providing free services to seniors on conventional transit and not free service, paid service to seniors who rely on TRANSPO is because technically these are considered to be two separate services. And I would like to suggest that we need to start thinking not about what is legally or technically, you know, legally or technically the reasons, but what legally or technically right, but what is morally right. And I do believe that, you know, we need to start taking a look. We have accessibility legislation in place. 27% of people identify with a disability. I think we need to start talking more about service offerings in general and considering the needs of para users. We have a public accessibility policy that clearly states that the accessibility policy ensures the provision of equal treatment to people with disabilities with respect to the use and benefit of city services, programs, goods, and facilities in a manner that respects their dignity and that is equitable in relation to the broader public in the areas of customer service, information and communication, employment, and taxis. So we're not covering off transit. And we're seeing TRANSPO users service on the rise. We'll see that today. Ridership of para is up. We heard a lot over the last couple of weeks about the need for students to have, you know, students being vulnerable users. And certainly a resident of mine sent me a screenshot of a tweet where it was discussing that students should have 5-minute service because students have to stand. I had the privilege of growing up in Edmonton. I don't normally call that a privilege actually, but of being able to use LRT in my last couple of years of undergraduate. I never expected as a student that doesn't have a disability to get a seat on the bus. You know, when I enter a bus, even now, I always look to see are there people that need seating, and I tend to think of, you know, on the LRT, do we have enough room for wheelchairs? Are there people that need a seat and not, you know, I'm a student, I pay a lot, I need to have a seat. And I think we need to change our thinking. And I know I'm just, you know, I am very concerned about this going forward. And I just have a couple questions for staff. On TRANSPO, what percentage of users have a monthly pass and what percentage of our revenue comes from daily use of passes?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Pat will answer that question.
Merci. So far this year in 2024, our figures are that 47% of the fare revenue on TRANSPO was collected from monthly passes and 52% from single ride fares with a tiny 1% from other sources.
Okay, so of that 52%, of people that are single fares. That's the population that would, if we made paratransport free on Wednesdays and Sundays for seniors, that's the population that we would, that would be using paratransport, the seniors in that single fare use, right? Or do you expect more use of people that aren't, do you expect more users to onboard paratransport as a result of that as well?
So that figure is for all paratransport customers, not just those who are seniors, and it's possible that the proportion is a little different for seniors. As we outlined in the reply to the inquiry, we do expect that there would be some new people making trips if certain days were free for seniors for paratransport. But we also expect that some people who are paying single ride fares would shift their trip to make their trip on Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever days council would designate, and that would increase ridership on those days to the point that we do not have enough capacity to carry all the customers, which would lead to us needing to tell some people that there's no capacity left for them, a thing we haven't had to do in 5 or 6 years. So, we provided in the response to the inquiry an estimate of how many people we think would shift their day to the free day, and therefore how many more buses we need to own and how much more money we'd need to spend on operations to accommodate those. That if it were Wednesday, Wednesday would instantly become the highest ridership day on paratransport, and we'd be building our whole fleet for a 1-day peak rather than a 5-day peak as we do now.
Okay, thank you. And in 2019, when we moved to have 2 free days, Wednesdays and Sundays for seniors, was it ever contemplated or costed in to include para users in that decision?
My recollection, Chair, is that the decision to have free days for seniors was had many benefits. One of those benefits was to encourage people who are paratransport users to shift to the fully accessible conventional service if they're physically able to. And that would not have been an encouragement if there'd been free fares also on paratransport. There's certainly the discussion around the time included the practical consideration of that there would be overloading on the free days.
Yeah, no, I understand the cost implications. It's just, we do have people that are dependent on paratransport and don't have another way to travel, and it does concern me. Just another quick question, and I'll ask more of these when we do the para update. How many new paratransport buses are being added in? If you could just refresh me on that. And will that actually add incrementally to our current fleet of paratransport buses as opposed to just replacing?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So the fleet of the para is composed by 86 buses. We will receive next year new para buses, and we will add 10 minibuses to be able to offer the on-demand service.
Okay, and the on-demand service can also serve, same as when we ran the trial 28, people with that are normally para users will have access to those buses as well.
This is correct, Chair.
Okay, I don't really have any more questions that I'll ask at this time, but I do think we need to do a better job about thinking about people with disabilities and providing a more equitable level of service.
Councillor Menard.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to staff for the response to Councillor Carr's inquiry. It does seem a little strange on its face, right, that we offer free transit for seniors on Wednesdays and Sundays, but not if you're a senior on paratransport. Just the I guess principle of it, this seems to be a bit odd that we don't. And staff have outlined why we don't and the cost implication. I guess the question for me is how do we make it more fair? What mechanisms is OC Transpo looking at to help alleviate some of the, I guess, the barrier that exists there? And I'm hearing very clearly from OC Transpo that there is an elasticity of demand. Fares matter. If you don't have fares, then a lot of more riders will ride our system, which is great news. So I guess, is there a plan for OC Transpo now to try to alleviate some of what seems like an inequity here for seniors on the Wednesdays and Sundays for people who require paratransfer service? And I say that very clearly, it's a requirement. It's not a you can't just choose. It's a requirement for many people to get around. So is there any plan around, say, some reduced fares or even one of those days, say Sundays, that might be able to accommodate more seniors who require paratransport service, to increase the fairness for the principle of those Wednesdays and Sundays?
Chair, with your permission, maybe next month when we will present the budget, maybe we can propose few things to try to work on this fairness or unfairness.
Oh, that's great. And I think, the councillor's inquiry does keep the issue on the radar. We've got a transit forum tonight at the Student Association at Carleton, and there's lots of questions there about the UPass and, fares and service in particular. So I think everyone is seized with transit right now in our city, and I know we're all looking for some solutions here to help get riders back. So in this case, definitely be something to look at. And I know that there's been a lot of councillors have also talked about, those who are on ODSP and making sure that we are doing everything we can to have ridership made easier for those folks. And some of our systems adjusted so that they can take the bus where they need to go without a huge expense, which they don't have any. They have very little funds for transportation expenses. So look forward to more of this conversation, and thank you to the councillor who raised the inquiry.
Okay, Councillor Brockington.
Councillor Carr has unpacked a lot of issues stemming from the original inquiry. The costs to operate one paratranspo bus aren't recovered by fares that are collected throughout the day. The fares are just a minor fraction of the cost of actually operating that bus. What percent of revenues are of the total cost?
Mr. Chair, fare revenues cover about 9% of the cost of running paratransport service.
So if we offered a free service on Wednesdays and or Sundays for seniors, the net cost to us would be marginal. We're really not talking about a significant amount of money. So I appreciate the GM's commitment to look at this further. Let's leave it with them, and we can discuss this further through the budget. But I've got to say, I've been on the commission now for 2 terms. I came to meetings in my first term when I was not appointed. There have been significant improvements to paratranspo over the last few years, many improvements. And staff need to have the opportunity, even if it comes back next month, to outline those changes from online booking to more customer service reps. The average wait times have significantly come down. We see stats that practically 100% of all trip requests are honored or provided. There's paratranspo offers door-to-door customized service, and it's not perfect. And we know there are more concerns out there about scheduling and booking, but just in my brief tenure here, there have been significant improvements to paratranspo, and that has to be said. So I appreciate the initial inquiry on seniors ride free. I think there is some opportunity to explore this further in the 2025 budget, and I appreciate the staff response. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're caught up. Yeah, I think it's not so much fares here. It's making sure we have the capacity. Without the capacity, we're dealing with overbookings or unavailability of rides or significant late times. So good to understand what some of those factors are. Okay, we will move on to the next item. 4.2 is LRT operating speeds. Again, an inquiry that was held over from the last meeting. And Councillor Hill, you had asked for this one to be moved to this meeting, so we'll let you start off.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for including this report today. I've asked for this series of inquiries over the last couple of months regarding cant angle, turn radius, and speed profile as a result of my read of the judicial inquiry, focusing on the assessment of root cause being linked to the rail wheel interface. My focus is on safety and technical safety compliance. On that note, I know that the city commissioned an independent report on this topic from Mott MacDonald. Can you confirm the status of this report and our process of receiving technical feedback on the 2021 derailment root cause?
Thank you for the question. So we can confirm that Mark MacDonald has been given the assignment to review a number of reports that the city has in its possession. So Mark MacDonald is reviewing the Alstom Sustainable Solution. They are also reviewing a document prepared by RTG's consultant, JBA, on their assessment of the Alstom Sustainable Solution. So the final version of the Mott MacDonald report, which will give analysis and opinion on those two other reports, we're expecting to receive very shortly. So we're in the final draft. Once it is finalized, we're expecting that we'll be able to make that available at the clerk's office for review by councillors.
Okay, thank you. So we're kind of thinking within the next quarter.
Thank you for the question. We're expecting certainly in the next quarter.
Thank you. The design speed limits for the curves outside of Lees, Herdman, and Tremblay stations have been reduced on average by 10 kilometers an hour under the current temporary speed reductions. Why is such a significant speed decrease necessary to operate the train safely and avoid further derailments?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Those speed restrictions were put in place by Alstom, the manufacturer of that, as part of their safety note. So we follow that, their direction on that, to ensure that it meets all the requirements.
In general, what impact does operating trains at faster speeds across sharp curves have on the wear and tear of the vehicle or the bogie system?
Chair, this is a question that we will need to ask Alstom. For now, the speed restriction was required just of an abundance of cautious, but they will need to explain one day when we will be able to remove those TSRs, so why we had to implement them. Today, we cannot say, we cannot answer to your question, Councillor.
Were there any concerns raised in the design phase of Line 1 on the impact that sharp turns leaving the stations would have on the wear and tear of the light rail vehicles, particularly when operating at faster speeds?
Thank you for the question. The system was designed by RTG with the vehicle in mind, and so all those criteria were met, and there's a safety case that supported the design of the system overall.
And to the other side, are there potential downside safety risks that come with operating at a speed profile that is lower than was originally identified from the perspective of the rail interface and the cant angle?
Chair, every time that we receive a safety note from Alstom, we do our due diligence. So every time we run the system, it's because we are sure it's safe to do so.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. I'm seeing no other questions. So we'll close that item and move on to item 5.1, which is our monthly OC Transpo update for rail, bus, and para-transpo. We do have one delegation, so we're going to do the staff presentation first, and then we'll go to our delegation, and then we'll go to questions from councillors for staff. So Renee, bonjour.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. Merci beaucoup.
Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning,
Chair.
As usual, I'm very proud and happy to be here today with my team to present some important, I would say, updates and some good results. Next slide, please. I would like to start by providing an update on trial running for lines 2 and 4. As you know, trial running began this past Monday, October 7th. Trial running is scheduled to operate for 21 days and is designed to evaluate the system's performance, ensure safety, and confirm reliability under real-life conditions. So far, everything has been running smoothly this week. As I noted at last week's technical briefing, this is really TNEXT final exam. And so far, the system has been functioning predictably, it's a hard word, and TNEXT are responding appropriately and quickly to address any issues. We will continue to provide City Council with daily performance reports during trial running and a more formal update once we have completed the process. I'm also pleased to let you know that we are improving our real-time information system. We've been working very hard to improve the information provided in our trip map planning tools. Soon, transit information screens at stations and the text service 560560 will show if a trip has been canceled. This will improve our customers' transit experience and keep them better informed on their trip. This month, OC Transpo is launching Para-Transpo Talk, a new customer engagement series that will replace the Para-Transpo Customer Service Working Group. Para-Transpo Talk will take place 6 times per year in a mix of in-person and virtual events depending on the season. The format of Para-Transpo Talk was chosen to increase accessibility and customer engagement. Para-Transpo Talk events will be open to all customers, and there is no requirement to apply to be a part of the group. The goals of Para-Transpo Talk are to gather customer feedback, encourage participation from all customer demographics and usage levels, and promote Para-Transpo services and initiatives. The first Para-Transpo Talk series will take place later this month, and we will begin promoting it soon. In other Para-Transpo news, I'm so pleased to advise you that the procurement of 92 Para-Transpo minibuses is now complete. Our first 6-meter minibus is currently being used by staff for inspection, testing, and training purposes. More to come on that. I'm pleased to tell you that customers will have their first opportunity to see the bus at the Para-Transpo Talk sessions later this month. Next slide, please. It's not a surprise. September is one of our busiest months, with students going back to school and many returning to the workplace. And for sure, this September, we welcome the Fed's workers as well. So I'm pleased to let you know that we saw increases in fare sales, ridership, and park and ride use compared to the same time last year. For fare sales, adult, senior Equipass and Community Pass sales combined are up to 24%. Revenue from single ride fares is up 27%. And more post-secondary students are eligible for the U-Pass. About the ridership, weekday bus boardings are up for 4%. Weekday line boardings are up 11%. And Para-Transpo ridership is up 14%. Park and ride use is also up by 12%. We will report final September 2024 ridership at the next Transit Commission meeting, but we are very encouraged by these early indications and so happy to see people who are back. Next slide, please. As I mentioned at last week's technical briefing regarding lines 2 and 4 trial running, New Ways to Bus will now start in April 2025. We wanted to launch the network following the opening of the new train lines. Now that the train is likely to open late this year, we needed to make adjustments to our plan to ensure the success of the bus network. We understand that many customers were looking forward to revised routes and new connections. The spring launch will help ensure we maintain customer service and minimize impacts to customers over winter. By launching in the spring, we are increasing our chances for success. This is a best practice by many transit agencies around the world who typically will not make major changes to service during the winter. Other considerations that led us to a spring launch include major service changes during the winter would likely coincide with snow or freezing rain events. Launching in the winter would create more uncertainty and possible confusion for customers. Customers will be able to adapt to their service changes better in spring weather. Staff will be better positioned to manage the over 5,000 bus stop signs and other information material. I will now hand things over to Amanda Thompson, our Manager of Strategic Communications, to explain how customer information campaign will adapt to this new launch timing for New Ways to Bus. Next slide, please.
Merci, Renee. The new timeline for New Ways to Bus is an excellent opportunity for us to enhance our ongoing support for customers. Le nouveau calendrier pour le programme L'autobus réinventé est une excellente occasion d'améliorer notre soutien continu aux clients. It will allow customers to get accustomed to using the new O-Train lines 2 and 4 and provide sufficient time for them to understand how their trips may be changing with the New Ways to Bus system. With this new timeline, it will allow us to meet more customers where they are. Over the course of the past few months, our outreach team has been attending events across Ottawa to meet with customers. One consistent piece of feedback we've received was that customers wanted more clarity on timelines. Today's update allows us to enhance our ongoing communication and provide that clarity that customers are seeking. So on your screens right now, you'll see the 3 phases of our campaign. The tactics in each of these phases will grow in scope as we get closer to launch and will continue a few weeks after the bus system is implemented in the spring of 2025. We've adjusted our campaign to take advantage of the new defined timeline, and I'd like to take a few minutes just to touch on some of the key items in that information campaign. So we have already begun the information campaign, and we are taking full advantage of every day we have until the new launch of the New Ways to Bus system. Right now, our website is updated regularly to provide information for customers, and we continue to attend events to meet customers in person. I know many people in our community have also seen the new bus stop signs that have been installed at over 5,000 bus stops. So originally, we were working with a much shorter timeline, and the black wraps that were installed over the New Ways to Bus stop signs were a short-term solution. So we recognize that the signage needs to be better protected through the winter, and our team has developed a plan for a much more robust covering. They will be out installing these over the next couple of months so that customers have clear information about the current bus service, while we also ensure that every bus stop will be ready in the spring for the launch of the new network. As we get closer to the launch of the New Ways to Bus, we will also be using various tactics to reach as many residents as we can. This will include multilingual advertising and community publications and more prominent features on octranspo.com, on social media, and other digital platforms and alerts. We're also finalizing a school-specific communications plan that will be targeted towards students and school stakeholders. And we will certainly be continuing our customer outreach and be available to support counselors by attending events in the community or in your ward. As we approach our spring launch date, every household in Ottawa will also receive a mail out, and that will ensure everyone is aware of the upcoming change to the bus system and can plan ahead. And then we know also that this spring launch date will mean that some of our university and college students may have left the city. So we will be continuing the campaign in some form or other throughout both the spring and the summer, and a revamped version will launch in advance of the fall and the return to work and school period, so we can ensure that we reach as many customers as possible. We will continue to be agile and adjust to ensure we are supporting customers as much as possible. Merci. Je vais maintenant passer la parole à Renée.
Now, I'll give back the floor to Renee.
Merci beaucoup, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
I'd like to take now a moment and remind everyone of our goal to improve bus service delivery to 99.5%. I think you're familiar now with this wheel. This is an ambitious goal, but I know we can achieve it. Ottawa residents for sure deserve a reliable transit service. As you know, there are three key components to achieving this target: the new ways to bus network, bus maintenance planning, and recruitment. As I have mentioned in the past, if one spoke on this wheel breaks, the transit system fails to deliver the service customers expect. I've just provided an update on our new ways to bus network. We continue our efforts to improve bus maintenance processes and planning through our bus maintenance action plan to ensure our fleet is ready and available to deliver service to customers. On the recruitment front, I do have some good news. While we have had challenges in staffing bus operator positions, I'm very pleased today to be able to say our recruitment efforts have paid off and staffing levels have now stabilized. We are not hiring any more bus drivers. It's huge because the shortage, it's not only here at OC TRANSPO, it's around the world. My colleague and friends, they cut services because they don't have bus drivers. So we are very proud here at OC TRANSPO. We don't have to deal with this shortage anymore. We have the right level of resources to deliver our operations. By making improvements in all three of these areas, new ways to bus, recruitment, bus maintenance plan, we will reach our bus service delivery goal, which is an ambitious one, as you know, 99.5%, nothing less. Next slide, please. Look at these happy faces. We can go to the next one. There are just a few of our newest bus operators hired in the last few months. Since April 2022, our recruitment team has attracted a record number of bus operator applications through innovative marketing techniques, working with community partners, and attending numerous outreach events, career fairs, and trade shows. And these efforts have paid off. We have recently reached an incredible milestone of hiring 828 bus operators since 2022. It's massive. When I just arrived here, when we hired, let's say, 100, 150, it was a big year. 828 since 2022 that we have hired. Over a demanding 6-week training period, our dedicated team of trainers ensure that all newly hired bus operators are well prepared and safe before they officially begin to carry passengers across our city. Our recruitment efforts are continuing for other positions within transit, including mechanics and special constables. These are the people who will allow us to attain our bus service delivery goal which is, now 99.5%. Next slide, please. Okay, stay to the previous one. Sorry for that. I think you will forgive me, and with Chair Gower's permission, I would like to now take the opportunity to thank people who have made the difference on that. It's one thing to have a goal. It's one thing to have good ideas, and it's another thing to be able to deliver. Under the leadership of Ken Gordon, who could not be here today, unfortunately, and under the leadership of Olivia Megwenti, I would like her to stand up, please. I want to be able to present the tiny thing was behind this. Alana Edwards, please. Training and Workforce Management. Stand up and stay. Reste debout. Gord Pot, Training and Workforce Management Coordinator. Evie Radcliffe, Recruitment and Employee Management Coordinator. Anna Marino, Recruitment and Employee Management Coordinator. Please join me to applaud them. Merci beaucoup du fond de mon cœur. Je l'ai dit en
From the
anglais,
bottom
c'est-
of my heart, thank you so much. Without a good team, it doesn't matter if you have good ideas, it doesn't work.
Now I'd like to ask Louis Duquette to talk about health and safety trains. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, René. Bonjour, Commission de Transport en commune. Je m'appelle Dwayne Duquette et je
Thank
suis
you, everyone.
chargé
My name is Dwayne Duquette. I'm responsible of safety
aujourd'hui.
here at OC
J'aimerais
TRANSPO.
prendre quelques minutes
I would like
pour
to take some of your time
un measure de
to
sécurité.
provide you with information about health and safety.
Actually, next slide, please. Before I start, I would like to point out that the data on this slide is current as of August 31st, 2024. To begin, I'd like to draw your attention to the top left-hand corner where we show our customer injury rate. Our SMS, or Safety Management System target for level 3 customer injuries is a little over 1 per 1 million trips. At the end of August, we are reporting an annual decrease in the employee injury rate to 0.61 per 1 million trips. Currently, the top customer injury are related to embarking, and this means getting on equipment. Next, I want to discuss employee occurrences. Our safety management system target for employee occurrences is less than 7.57 occurrences per 200,000 kilometers. We are currently sitting at 519 for the year, which does put us in line to meet or exceed this target. I would like to remind everyone that not all occurrences result in an injury. The top 3 types of occurrences for this month are struck or caught, assaults, and overexertion. Assaults, as classified here, can include physical assaults, but also threats or acts and gestures. Finally, for this slide, we show red light infractions and speeding. Presently, we are trending towards an increase in speeding this year and a reduction in red light infractions. Next slide, please. Previously, a request was brought forward asking for a comparison of our safety data to other agencies. I will now go through some of our findings, but before I start, I would like to mention that OC TRANSPO is part of the International Bus Benchmarking Group. This group provides confidential information on medium and large bus organizations located around the world with the purpose of learning from each other by comparing performance, sharing experience, and identifying best practices. I would also like to point out that this information is from 2022, which is the most recent available and is reported, and as reported on the slide, may not be a direct comparison as we have no control over other agencies reporting thresholds. Of the 16 agencies responding, 13 of the 16 have barriers installed on some or all of their fleet. However, not all barriers are equal. Some are half or 3/4 coverage, and all are primarily made of glass and plexiglass.
OC TRANSPO ranks 13th lowest of the 16 agencies for passenger injuries. This means we had less injuries per interval than 12 other members. Next is vehicle collision rate. The positive news is we are among the lowest for vehicle collision rates on both the 1,000 vehicle hours and 10,000 vehicle kilometers. Unfortunately, we are among the highest agencies for preventable collisions and collisions with vulnerable road users. In an effort to reduce our vehicle collision rate, and of course, any other road violations, we have a number of mitigations in place, including our safety observation program, our Drive Able program, our one-day refreshers that was recently completed, and Geotab program, among others. Next slide, please. Finally, I would like to update you on the Fare Compliance Initiative. As most of you are aware, we initiated a fare compliance program last month. The program ran 4 weeks from September 3rd to September 30th. We had a total of 12 fare inspectors deployed across the system. The purpose was to educate, reduce lost revenues, and of course, protect the integrity of the fare system. Upon completion of the 4 weeks, we had issued 15 warnings and over 900 provincial offense notices on bus, rail, and at station. What isn't captured in these metrics, however, are the thousands of interactions and conversations the inspectors had with the public, where most of the feedback we received was positive. Due to the success of the program, Madame Amakar has asked us to extend it until the end of 2024, and we are pleased to accommodate this ask. Thank you for your time. Now I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Monsieur Kirouet.
Merci beaucoup, Dwayne. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning. Today, we'll start with conventional bus and O-train ridership. As Renee mentioned earlier, final September results aren't available just yet and will be presented at the next meeting. But as you can see on the slide, for the 12-month period ending in August 2024, total ridership for that 12-month period was 67.7 million, which is an increase compared to the preceding 12-month period and a 11% increase compared to the same period a year ago. So aligned with the indicators we're getting for September that ridership is generally increasing year over year.
Since our last update, the ridership has actually exceeded our provision. In September, the number of paratransport clients had 73,300 rides. So we have more trips than the previous month and 15% higher than the previous year. So a great increase of ridership compared to the previous year. Next slide.
Here we have our measures for on-time performance for both conventional bus and paratransport. Working from the top down of the slide, we can see that regularity for our frequent routes, shown here in blue, was 79% in September 2024, 1% higher than for the same month in 2023. Punctuality, our measure for less frequent routes, here seen in yellow, was 70% on time in 2024, slightly lower than for September 2023. So a slight decrease there. In both cases, this is a decrease from the results seen over the summer and is a result of the seasonal return of higher traffic congestion across the city as students are back at school and more people are back at work. Looking at the left side of the page, we can see that the 12-month average regularity for the period ending in September 2024 was 83%, 2% lower than our target of 85%, and about the same as the previous month, so relatively stable month to month when we look at the yearly average. The 12-month average punctuality for the same period was 75%, 10% lower than our target, and holding steady again from the previous period. As we've mentioned in previous presentations, the implementation of our new bus network next year is anticipated to increase both regularity and punctuality of our service, as running times and deadhead times have been further calibrated. Moving on to paratransport on-time performance, 93% of customers were picked up within their 30-minute window in September 2024, a small increase compared to the same month a year ago. For the 12-month rolling average, paratransport on-time performance remains at 94%, the same as the previous months. And as you can see through the graph, has been very, very stable throughout the year. Next slide, please. Finalement, on peut voir les résultats ici pour la livraison de service.
Here we can actually see the results for service delivery for O Train Line 1 as well as the bus. On the O Train Line 1, by the end of September 2024, we were able to have a 12-month average service delivery of 98.9%, 0.6% lower than target, and the same as the previous month. In December 2024, we were able to reach 99.1%, slightly lower than the September 2023. It's because we have some issues with the camera.
For the service delivery of our conventional bus service, we continue to observe improvements. For the 12-month period ending in September 2024, the average service delivery was 98.1%, not yet at our target of 99.5, but an improvement of 0.2% compared to the previous 12-month period. For September specifically, service delivery was 98.1%, 1.7% higher than for the same month in 2023, when service delivery was 96.4%, considerably lower a year ago. I'll now pass it along to my colleague, Matt Peters.
Thank you, François. Dans les prochaines pages, je présenterai une mise à jour.
I would like
sur
to provide you with an update concerning the axle bearing and maintenance works update. It was an update compared to what Richard Alders told you in last September.
The last update in September was that 82% of the leading and trailer bogies had completed their nut pinning. Today, we are currently at 85% complete. The axle inspection regime remains consistent at 3,750 kilometers for each vehicle, and they continue to be replaced every 60,000 kilometers for the leading and trailing bogies. There is no change to the temporary speed restrictions, and they remain in place. Next slide, please. The top of rail lubrication equipment for the tunnel section of the Line 1 has now been received by RTG, and the installations are expected to start in the coming weeks. The fourth Alstom instrumented bogie test was completed, and the report has not been provided to the city at this time. The initial indication is that the data collected was inconclusive, and discussions continue to determine if another instrumented bogie test will be completed. The NRC track-based testing is also ongoing. The strain gauges haven't been installed in one curve on both tracks, and the data is being collected. We expect a report once the testing concludes and the data has been analyzed. As mentioned at the last Transit Commission meeting, as part of the restraining rails, specialty brackets were installed, and RTM continues to work on their long-term maintenance plan to ensure the no contact requirement with the back of the wheels is maintained. Next slide, please. The update to the wheel flange lubrication is that the final software testing was completed and the location-based dispensing has been deployed to the majority of the fleet. The wheel rail interface working group continues to meet, and Segan continues to analyze options for the wheel rail profiles for Line 1. Next slide, please. RTM will be commencing their planned maintenance activities starting on October the 19th, and my colleague Brad Tubman will discuss this further next. As part of this work, RTM will be performing rail grinding from Tunney Station to Blair Station on both tracks. This grinding work has been performed in previous years and will remove the rail corrugation that is currently present on the tracks. The removal of rail corrugation will help to improve the effectiveness of the top of rail and wheel flange lubrication systems and will have a smoother transition through the curves of the system. Further to that, they will be performing ballast work, where they will be adding new ballast between Herdman Station and Tremblay Station, but primarily through the curves. The ballast work includes a use of specialized equipment, and once completed, this work will boost the overall stability and lateral support of the tracks in this area. I will now pass it over to my colleague, Brad Tubman.
Merci, Matt. Bonjour, je m'appelle Brad Tubman et je suis le...
My name is Matt Tubman. I'm the responsible for the control center of... I'm happy to present you what we have, what we're planning for the incidents.
As Matt highlighted, this upcoming Line 1 maintenance work will include ballast work and rail grinding and is part of the RTM maintenance schedule to ensure long-term reliability and sustainability of our system. This work will be completed with a combination of late night and weekend closures from Saturday, October the 19th to Sunday, November the 3rd. Late night closures will be in effect from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Saturday closures will be in effect from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. Sunday closures will be in effect from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. For customers, this means that replacement bus service will operate across the entire line or in specific sections depending on the day and particular maintenance activities taking place. We appreciate that every time there's a service impact, there's also an impact on our customers as well. We don't take these decisions. We thank all of our customers for their patience while we complete this work to enhance the system. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the detailed schedule for the maintenance work from October 19th to November the 3rd. Throughout the maintenance period, work will be completed in segments along the entire line. When possible, partial service will be implemented and maintenance will be completed on weekends or overnight to minimize customer impacts. Full system service adjustments are required on certain days when it is not possible to perform required work without impacting service in both directions. On all Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays during the maintenance period, there will be no service adjustments and regular line 1 service will run along the entire line, indicated by the green portions of the graphic displayed. The weekend closures include the following. October 19th and 20th, and during that time, R1 replacement service will be in place from Blair to Rideau, and line 1 service will run from Tunney's Pasture to U Ottawa. On Saturday, October 26th and Sunday, October 27th, R1 will be in place from Tunney's Pasture to Blair Station. Line 1 will not be in service that weekend. November 2nd and 3rd, R1 will be in place from Tunney's Pasture to Blair Station, and no line 1 service will be operating that weekend. The late night closures include the following. On October the 22nd and 23rd, which is a Tuesday and Wednesday, replacement bus service will be in place from Blair to Rideau stations. Line 1 will operate from Tunney's Pasture to U Ottawa. On October the 29th and 30th, also a Tuesday and Wednesday, R1 will be in place from Blair to Rideau. Line 1 will be in place from Tunney's Pasture to U Ottawa stations. Line 1 service will resume at the regular start time of each day that full or partial train service is provided. And I will now pass it over to my colleague, Amanda Thompson, who will provide details on the customer communications plan.
Merci. Thank you, Brad. We recognize that planned maintenance that affects line 1 service is disruptive to our customers and that closures occurring at different times and on different segments of the line can certainly be confusing. So our communications will clearly explain the planned closure schedule using a variety of channels, and we will be communicating in advance, during, and following the planned closures. We will reach customers and stakeholders using a variety of channels, including a memo to council, which will be released following this meeting, public service announcements, website updates and alerts, social media, and notifications in both the travel planner and the transit app. We encourage our customers to visit octranspo.com to see the schedule and to take advantage of both the travel planner or the transit app to plan trips in advance. Nous encourageons nos clients à visiter
we invite every client to actually visit octranspo.com to know what's going on with the transit and use the travel planner or the transit app to plan their trips.
And at bus stops over the course of the entire closure period. And we will also have outreach teams at key locations to ensure we are supporting customers during their journeys. I know that this disruption is very frustrating to our customers, and we appreciate everyone's patience as we complete this work. Merci, Monsieur le Président. That concludes.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm finished with my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. Merci à toute l'équipe pour les mises à jour.
Thank you so much for all of your updates.
Register. We have Kyle Humphrey, who is online.
Hi, folks.
Good morning, Kyle.
How are we today?
Good, good. So you'll have 5 minutes and you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. A couple of issues today. Where do I start? I recently received a letter with regards to paratransport and how paratransport has not been kept up to service or kept up to par with the rest of OC, and that came from someone who came into Ottawa to do their job. So we're now affecting people from around the world, and that's been happening for years. Unfortunately, no one's been loud enough to say anything about it yet. So, really hoping that we can step things up and get things going with regards to taxi service, with regards to same day booking, as I think I've been saying for now 6 years, and with regards to making sure that paratransport users don't have to rely on a taxi service. And I understand the fiscal and financial benefits of taxi, but when paratransport users book for a ride that doesn't sit them at a 20-degree angle, and then have them on a back of a van, where they leave that van with back pain or more back pain than they went in with, which in my case, I have MS, so I go in with back pain anyways and leave with plenty more. But when people are dealing with these things already, and when they're dealing with the lack of access to buildings in Ottawa already, and they're dealing with the lack of being able to go out and spontaneously say yes to work, to events, to doctor's appointments, paratransport users have sat quietly for a long time. They've sat quietly and waited patiently. And when it comes to helping the people that need it the most, paratransport users don't generally have the luxury of jumping in someone's car and saying yes to going out and doing something. So they say no. They don't have the luxury of last minute jumping into a transit meeting, at City Hall. So the fact that you're doing this is wonderful now, but we need to move further. We need to take this example where someone's able to sit at home or sit at work and take time out of their day to do this and move forward with this. We need to make sure that we continue to create accessible spaces everywhere in Ottawa, because if Windsor is saying you're not accessible enough, then I think we have a problem when the capital of the country isn't accessible enough for a town that is far on the outskirts of anywhere that we think to go. And finally, I just want to make sure that we continue to keep an open line of communication with everyone, whether that's someone that calls in that doesn't use the internet, or if that's someone that uses the internet quite a bit and uses Twitter. There was an issue. There was the online booking site being fixed, and OC TRANSPO decided that the way that they would communicate things was going to be through the OC TRANSPO helps page, the Twitter page, where I don't think I've ever seen anything besides bus cancellations on that page, and OC TRANSPO bus cancellations. So for someone to be expected to follow that Twitter feed as well as the main Twitter feed for OC TRANSPO is absolutely ridiculous. And I would like to see either a paratransport Twitter page created already, or let's have someone use the page that everybody follows. Let's have someone use the page that everybody understands. That isn't, I canceled the 55 3 times in a row. So I'd really like to see communication. I'd like to see community involvement with paratransport users, which I know is coming. And I'd really like to see counselor involvement. I'd like to see counselor involvement in all facets of paratranspo, because I know that every single person here has someone that uses paratranspo that is affected in their part of the city. And I know that
Kyle,
because I've been to every
Kyle,
part.
you're at time, so I'm going to pause you
Yep.
there.
No,
There
I'm
may be-
done. I'm done. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that everyone has someone that uses paratranspo in their part of the city. That's all. Thank you.
You do have a question from Councillor Carr.
Hi, Kyle. Oh, can I go ahead? Yes. Okay. Thanks very much, Kyle, for being here, and I appreciate your ongoing advocacy. We've seen an uptake in ridership on paratranspo, and I know you've been an uptake since last year. I know you've been an advocate for a long time. Have you noticed any improvements? Are there any improvements to report on with respect to paratranspo? I know we have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. Let me walk you through the past 6 years, and I can do it really quick. Improvements have been everything that people have fought for in the past 6 years. From the online booking, which took until COVID, until the beginning of COVID to launch, and then once COVID came, it was launched, and now we're not entirely back to where we were before. We're almost there, but hopefully these numbers in terms of booking times will continue to keep up once we're back at full capacity. I have noticed the overnight booking is nice to have. At least nice to have access to for people to be able to say yes to. Now we have to work on making the city accessible, but that's a different committee. Yeah, I want to make sure that we can continue with the Presto readers. I know that having access to just bring your Presto on the bus is great, but the number of times I've walked off the bus forgetting my Presto card that the driver kept is getting out of hand now. I now have to go replace my card, and there's been an issue there as well. I've now paid $20 or more in the past few days just to be able to take the service. Again, I'm on ODSP again, and then looking forward to seeing things come out with the Ottawa Senators, and now that they have new ownership and the buses that people continue to get to there, and I see that there's a lot of people taking the bus again. So paratranspo users are relying on this service, and I look forward to seeing what they can do. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thanks, Kyle, and you can always reach out to me with respect to accessibility issues going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kyle, for your presentation and bringing your perspective to committee. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Brockington has, for staff. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Kyle. Take care. We are going to move to questions for staff, and Councillor Brockington, you're quick on the draw. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you. Thank you, staff, for the detailed presentation. I have a number of questions. So September is generally the highest volume in ridership, which you've acknowledged, and the September 2024 data looks promising so far. Does the September ridership and revenue data exceed budgeted projections, meet the budgeted projections, or not meet the budgeted projections?
Thank you, Chair. It's a little bit too early because normally we should have this data that you consider at the next meeting. But so far I can say that the ridership is pretty good, 78%. So we are very, very happy to see that. On the revenue side, we will need to wait a little bit.
So we don't have the details yet, the granular ridership numbers to know whether or not we met our budgeted ridership numbers. We don't know yet.
For now, for the month of September, definitely, yes, we met our projected ridership. And as I said, those data are are being compiled now. So we should have a better number for you at the next Transit Commission.
Fair enough. I'm very happy you brought staff who worked on the operator campaign. I think that was a nice touch. Congratulations. The 828 operators is very impressive. You had indicated the campaign is over, but I just want to clarify, we are always going to be in a hiring mode. There will always be attrition. There will always be retirements. We will always continue to hire bus operators year after year.
Chair, this is correct, and we'll have our plan, resource plan at the beginning of each year. And this is where we will know how many we need, when we have to hire them, but it will be a handful of people that we will need. It's not a huge campaign.
Okay, fair enough. The employee occurrences data, very much appreciate that. The physical assaults or the acts of violence gestures, how many of those incidents were reports or filed with the Ottawa Police Service?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Apologies, I do not have that information with me, but I will take it away and we will get you an answer.
So what is this, when an operator reports to their employer that they've either been assaulted or they have been threatened, and we, OC TRANSPO, compile that data, how do we inform the Ottawa Police that these issues are happening?
Thank you for the question, Chair. As you're aware, we do have our special constable units that is actually they liaise regularly with the Ottawa Police Services and work with them regularly on these cases. In fact, I will, like I had mentioned earlier, we will take a look and get you the data, but most of them would have been reported actually to our special constable units and not directly to the police services.
Okay, fair enough. The on-time performance data remains flat, whether that doesn't matter what the frequency of the bus is, the data is quite flat for quite some time now. And Madam Amaka, I believe what you're telling us is with the new hires, the three-pronged approach here, with the new hires plus the bus route changes that are coming next spring, plus the maintenance action plan, we are going to see on-time performance data improve. I want you to confirm that. Right now, we're about 76% on-time performance. Your target is 85% as a minimum. With those three major things happening, the new hires, the maintenance plan, the bus route changes, what is your estimate that we're going to? We're going to go from 76% to what next spring? What are you targeting is going to happen once we implement those three major campaigns?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. It's a tough one because for sure I would like to reach the goal that we have set, which is 85%, because it's impossible to have 100%. Otherwise, we would need to have only dedicated lanes, those kind of things. What we see so far with September, it's the traffic is crazy. So we will need to address that. But yes, to achieve the 99.5%, we need those three things to put together. And hopefully when we'll implement the new ways to bus, now we know that we're just waiting for the spring and the recruitment, we're okay. But we still continue to work on the maintenance side because we have some challenges, you know, and we'll talk about the e-buses later today. And we will continue. I'm not looking for excuses, but I'm just trying to tell you the truth here. But yes, we will see a huge improvement, but we are very close to the 99.5. And with my experience, I can tell you the last 1% is very, very tough to achieve it. And it will depend on how much we're ready to put, right? Because it will be a challenging one, but this is our goal.
My concern is even with the significant improvements that are happening, and to your credit, I appreciate what I see here. If right now 1 in 4 buses is not on time, and even if we get to 80%, we're still not meeting a target. It'll still be 1 in 5 buses that are not on time. And so what I am asking for as a transit commissioner, as we're going into the budget for 2025, is to look to you and your team for direction. What more do you need from the Transit Commission from a resource perspective to help you address on-time performance. In addition to these three matters that you've raised, if we have gridlock, then our bus lanes opportunities, our bus advanced lights at intersection opportunities. What are all the other ingredients that are possible? We've got to start addressing this, right? We talk about this practically every single meeting. So I do believe that the three major campaigns that our GM is initiated will make on-time performance better. I do. But if we don't hit 85%, if we don't hit the target, if we still have 1 in 5 buses running late, we have to look at what are the other alternatives that will contribute to improving bus reliability. This is the number one issue in my ward. I know it's an issue that impacts many other wards, and we can't be satisfied with 80%. I'm not satisfied with 76%. 1 in 4 buses right now are running late in this city, across the city, with a frequency of 16 minutes or more. So that's what I'm dying to have from you. And you can bring it through budget. We can contemplate it. We ultimately make decisions about how much resources we want to put into it. But at least my residents, and I know residents across the city who have seen on-time performance data basically flatlined for quite some time, is just not acceptable. So I very much appreciate and support what you've done to date. I just have concerns that I think we need to do more to get us to your target and to go beyond. And I'm please bring that information, bring that through budget, bring us a plan that has a whole bunch of options that we can consider, that we can implement. That continues to be number one concern in my ward. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to be clear, we're speaking on the presentation, nothing related to e-buses till the next item. Would that be correct?
Correct, e-bus.
Okay. So first of all, congratulations on the operators. I think that is good news. We're all very excited about that, and I commend your staff for that. It's great news. This has been a long-standing issue, so I'll start with that. When it comes to the East End, I was really hoping, and I know you don't want to put anything out there because, of course, if we don't deliver, it becomes problematic. So the East End, which is obviously the much more far complicated versus the North-South, which is essentially a diesel line. It's a different technology, not the same. Last update, I believe we heard June is most likely the time frame, possibly, but there was no commitment. Have we seen anything? Because now the excitement's building. We're seeing the testing end to end. That's great. Do we have any new updates? Because June is the last one I've heard so far.
Chair, with your permission, I would like to maybe to wait for the next subcommittee LRT because we'll have a thorough update. What I can say, last Saturday, we were so happy and so proud to see for the first time a train from Tunis-Pasteur to Trim.
Yes.
So this is a very, very, very good improvement. And but we will provide you a full detailed update. I think before the end of this year, we should come back, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking at you, Richard. We'll come back. I think we have another subcommittee LRT before the end of this year for sure. Yeah.
Yes, we can certainly come back with more information on the expected timeline for the East Extension.
Okay, great. And I'm asking some other questions based on some of my council colleagues in the East End. And I asked this last time about the new ways to bus. I think it's exciting. I'm very glad we're going to do this effort to get the mailings out. I'm creating some animated videos because people, they don't like reading, they like pictures, and I don't blame them, I'm the same. So creating some new animations and preparing my community for the future, which is actually going to be a great improvement. I'll have more of a discussion on the busing and the high capacity component later on when we get to the e-buses, because as the chair explained, that will be in the next item. I do have a concern about the high capacity busing, but I'll save that for the next part of the discussion. That being said, you were mentioning April is the launch point for the new ways to bus. I assume that's based on a seasonal schedule. And as Councillor Dudas, myself, my other East End colleagues, we're concerned if we don't launch them in tandem, the East End extension and the new ways to bus in the East End that have direct connections to the stations, more spoken hub, that there'll be problems. So what would are we looking at launching the new ways to bus when stage 2 light rail is opened within a very short window, or would it be based on seasonal schedule? I asked this last time because seasons are long, and I'd hate to lose out on the advantage of having the new ways to bus when that line opens.
Thank you, Chair. Pat will give you a detailed update on that. But the only thing that I would like to say that we don't normally wait necessarily a season to bring a change. The only thing it's with the new ways to bus, because we have so many stops, and it's a huge change because we have reviewed all the network, so we cannot implement those changes during the winter time. For the east, when we will open the east extension, it will be an easy change for us, even if it will be a lot of maybe new, I would say, new habits for people, but we don't consider that as a huge one.
Okay.
So no matter what, when it happens, we will be able to implement it. I don't know, Pat, if you would like to maybe have had more comments.
Thanks, Renee. I was just going to say more, Mr. Chair, specifically in the area of Councillor Tierney's ward. There are some route changes which will come into effect with new ways to bus in April. There will be some further route changes that would take place at another time to fully tie in with the east extension of the line. So, these two dates may be getting closer together than they were in 23 when we were looking ahead. So we're still working on the details of the second bunch of changes to knit into the line 1 extension. And when we have that together, we'll be able to see all the councillors about how we're going to engage with the community on those points. They will be fairly detailed and fairly small. There is one particular question that Councillor Dudas has raised, and we're working with her on that one particular aspect. And depending on how we resolve that, it's unlikely to affect Councillor Tierney's ward, but we'd certainly loop him in to make sure he knows what's going on.
Thank you very much, Pat. And I think you're highlighting exactly what we work in Simpatico in the East End, and Councillor Dudas and I work very well together on this because Montreal Road Station there's going to be impact. And I don't know if it requires just mentioning it here, but is it direction or can I ask staff to have concurrence from the 2 local councillors affected by the Montreal Road Station and that specific route? Because before any launch or based on the launch details, before anything actually takes place.
Mr. Chair, we'll certainly be talking to both councillors about Route 24.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I just need quick answers because I'm really saving it all up for the e-buses. The fare inspectors, I do like to hear the fare evasion is being looked at. I was out at Blair Station. I think this is a critical thing. It's again, like the Field of Dreams. People are running across. I went there 2 days ago. People are still running onto the train right by a big sign that says fine, 125. And I'm hoping we can secure that perimeter much better. Do we have a plan for that? There was literally 20 people in 4.5 minutes. I took a video. I was sitting there going, wow, they're all walking right in here. This is great. Like you just get right onto the train. There's no gates. There's nothing. So what's the plan to combat fare evasion at Blair Station?
Chair, for sure. We have started a blitz and we will continue the blitz. So we'll be more visible to make sure that it discourages people. And I think each ticket, it's $250 they have to pay, not $260. So it's a lot. And good news now, the province will bring it back to us. So this is great. So that's why I asked my team to continue the blitz. And we will be very aggressive on addressing that because people need to pay.
Absolutely. And on that note, you raise a good point. So first of all, the sign has to be updated in my area because it reflects the lower number. But second, how much do we actually, because we have to pay our employees to actually do the fare evasion. There's a whole series of things. How much do we actually get out of that aspect of things because it is a provincial act? that we adhere by, unless I'm wrong, please correct me. Are we going to see a bulk of that money coming our way?
Isabel, I don't know if you have this answer, but for sure, in the past, the province used to send something to the city, and it was transparent for us. But now a decision has been taken that we will receive what the province will give, but we will not receive the entire 260 per ticket, but at least we will receive something, and we will be able to have more inspectors to make sure that we address the problem.
That's excellent news. And when it comes to special constables, how many special constables do we actually have on our roster right now?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Apologies, I will have to take it away. We are, I'll have to get you the exact number. It's around the 50 number, but I just don't have the
Okay.
number.
And so on that's fine. We can talk later on. I just want to know how they position them, because there's a couple of new scenarios versus the old way of BRT. The old BRT constables could be deployed very quickly or to these areas where we have problems, specifically Blair Station. Now there's a big track down there, so they got to use regular roadways to get to these stations. My understanding is they're not allowed to speed. So obviously we have to plan where, and I'm seeking if we can have direction or not to come back to the next meeting about which station platforms see the greatest number of issues, charges, and ensuring we're deploying the maximum number of agents on those specific platforms, because I think that's critical.
So Chair, maybe to answer to your first question, Councillor, the Special Constable Unit, they have 70 people, which consists of Special Constable plus Communication Officer, etc. And the platoon are deployed everywhere for sure, but at Blair, Herdman, Rideau, those three stations are a main, I would say, hot seat places, unfortunately. So we need to improve our presence there. But even if we normally have two people present at those stations, it's like when they go for rounds, when they come back, they can see the same problem. So it's a systemic problem, I would say. It's not only OC TRANSPO that will resolve that. So so we continue to work on that for sure. And we know that, as I said, Blair, Herdman, and Rideau are all top three on those stations where we have so far problems.
Okay, great. So the next meeting, could we have that come back about a breakdown of all our stations that are currently online and where the greatest issues are?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, Chair. Yeah.
And it just came to my mind. I was trying to look at actually the 125 sign is related to them crossing into the zone. Now, would that be considered? I think this is where we can actually really change things, because I see some OC vehicles parked in there. They're not the fare inspectors. They're the people doing the great work in the stations, but they're walking right by them. Can we not modify the dangers of crossing the transit, because they are not only crossing transit, which is a 125 fine, it's 260 the second. Oh, I guess that's the question. When do we determine it's fare evasion? The second they step into an area that is not gated, because there is no gate. So I guess I don't know how you do that. Can we not change it to say you enter this area, it's a $260 fine, it's fare evasion?
Je réponds en français parce que celui-là, c'est technique.
I'll answer in French because this is technical. So what, excuse me.
Media, if you want to put on your earpieces. I'd just like to give a second. Well, I think it's fair to media, Riley, to ensure that they have an understanding of the situation. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Let's let Renee answer. Thank you.
Merci, Chair. So, le $125, c'est
So
les
the
gens qui
$125 is for people going in zones dedicated for buses, and it is dangerous. So from the outset, it's not a question of fare revision, but it's a question of danger for their security. They could be hit by a bus because that's a section reserved for buses. And of course, people will go towards that zone because they don't want to pay. So because once you are in that zone, you don't have to pay. It's the non-paying zone. So $125 is something that we implemented instead of the $260. That's for when you're not paying, you're already in the bus, and the province tells us that the fine is $260, and we send that to the province, and the province collects all the money. And as I said earlier in English, we will be able to receive part of that money, and we're very happy about that.
Who under you is in charge of the fare inspectors again?
It's under Dwayne Duquette, who's the chief, acting chief safety officer. So the special constable unit and the training and the regulation department are under this the chief safety officer.
Wonderful. And I'll have further questions on that later on as well, but I'll do it in the way of an inquiry, because I guess my colleague feels I have to get quoted. I don't know what kind of comment that was, Mr. Chair, but again, this is your committee. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Okay, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. It's encouraging to, first of all, I'm glad I never achieved anything great at OC, because otherwise you would have made me stand up there as well, and that would have been nerve-wracking for me. So the current practice is the information about the real-time information and the improvements in showing canceled trips is very encouraging, because it does sort of let people know that you know what's going on. The current practice, I believe, is that the trip basically disappears on text and on the TISs, on the transit information screens at the stations if the trip is canceled. So I guess now is the change now the trip will still be there and there's like a strike through or something?
I think Rawa is here. Rawa is the best to explain that. Sorry to put you on the spot, Rawa. This is what happened when we were good.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, so the TIS screens that are being installed on the line 2 for now will be integrated with GTFS RT, and that's what allows displaying canceled trips. So you saw that our 560 SMS system that was also integrated with our new GTFS real-time feed, and so is able to show canceled trips, and our transit app does as well. So as we progress in our TIS project, we plan to take the line 1 TISs and migrate them over. So it's coming, but for now, the line 2 TISs will very soon show that as well.
And these will include the TISs at the bus termini as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I would suggest that part of like whatever communications we do for that is that we manage some public expectations, because sometimes trips get canceled on the spot. Sometimes trips get canceled midway, and it still won't show. It'll still stay on the screen as 4 minutes away for 40 minutes, right? So that's a little suggestion that I'll just sort of throw out there. My second question is about the minibus procurement for ParaTranspo. I saw the photo of the bus. It looks great. We're getting 92 minibuses, if I recall from the presentation. Do those 92 minibuses include the 10 for on-demand, or is the 10 for on-demand on top of that?
Chair, they include the 10 for the on-demand, and I said 96 previously, but it's 92. 82 for ParaTranspo and 10 for the on-demand.
Okay, thank you. Is that, you know, we're noting that in every time that you're showing us ParaTranspo ridership, it's often exceeded targets, and it continues to increase. So will replacing 1-for-1 be enough going forward, or, you know, considering that we're taking advantage of a procurement, right? Would replacing them 1-for-1 be enough for service delivery? Do you see it, you know, is there a need to maybe expand that fleet?
Chair, I think in Ottawa, we are very lucky because our network is fully accessible. So it's not only with the ParaTranspo, but for sure, because those buses will be new, hopefully they will be more reliable, and that will augment the number of minibuses compared to now, where they are very old, those buses. But I want to encourage people to take as well our public transit, because it's fully accessible, which is a very great thing that we have here in Ottawa.
Well, no, I understand. Thank you. Moving on to the data about where we're comparing ourselves with other 16 other transit agencies or something. Can you share what other agencies are on that group? Because if we're comparing ourselves to something like Barrie or Leamington, that's sort of problematic for me from a data standpoint. But if we're comparing ourselves to like similar orders of transit agencies like TTC and STM, then at least that gives me some comfort in that data.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we cannot share where the data is coming from. I can tell you though that it is medium and large or bus organizations around the globe, and we are considered a medium organization.
Okay, thanks. That's good. The assault data, the assault data for this is just a point of clarification that I want to seek. The assault data on operators, is that all transit employees or just operators?
Chair, I think it's just operators, but we can verify, but it's just operators, yes, during the service. So they are, maybe we could have a supervisor as well. I don't know, Troy, are you aware?
Yeah, that's a great question. The majority of the assaults that we're seeing are with respect to operators. They're the largest number of employees that we have out in the workforce. But we do have a small number of assaults that do occur to other frontline staff. It could be it could be our supervisors, as Madame Emilcar mentioned, as well as our special constables who are responding to these events. But the vast majority are operators, bus and rail operators.
Okay, no, that's understandable. Would questions about line 2 testing be in order, considering it was an item? I'll see.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was in the slides.
An item in the slide.
You can ask,
Okay.
yes.
Line 2 testing, the first 2 days of information is great. 98.3, that's I think one trip short of 98.5 and 99.4%, right? That's good. Are there any sort of specific information about like other issues that may have come up that necessarily don't affect the schedule, right? Let's say it's a certain spot on the tracks, for example. Let's say it's a certain spot on the tracks that trains are rolling over that's causing some issues. Has anything like that been identified yet, or?
Richard?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So there are issues that are being seen out in the field, but that's what we see every day also on Confederation Line. So we're going to expect that there are going to be issues that need to be resolved by the technicians on the vehicles or by the technicians at the stations. And so that's the process that is occurring during trial running, is the process that will continue once we're in service. We were very committed to reporting back as part of the trial running daily reports on those events that impacted the ability to achieve our on-time performance in relation to departures beyond 30 seconds. And so that's, we're very much focused on that. That was our commitment, and that's what we continue to do every day.
Okay, thank you. No, at the next LRT subcommittee meeting, I'll probably ask some more pointed questions about ongoing things that, like I said, like maybe you're rolling over a spot of weird track that is causing extra wear and tear, but doesn't necessarily impact the schedule for that day, right? So I'll point it when we get there. I'll keep it to that meeting. My last question is sort of about the New Ways to Bus campaign. Is about the communications for the New Ways to Bus campaign. In the slide that had the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 communications, phase 3 is changes to street info. But we, most of us in our communities have seen the new bus stop signs that have been wrapped that were installed since August. Were they installed in August because at some point there was a thought that new network would deploy in like September or October? Because from what I see is you've sent teams out there to install these bus stop signs, wrap them, and then you're gonna have to send them back out to unwrap them and remove the old signs. Like sometimes my thinking is, well, not sometimes. My thinking is that, this is not first of all, optically, to tie it in with the whole budget thing that went on in August, optically, it's not a good look. And then second, it's just, I don't see it as the best use of those resources. Can you maybe sort of go over because last time I asked that, you just ended up giving me timelines, but can you sort of go over the logic of sending that team out there twice and maybe a third time now to redo those wraps?
Thank you very much for the question. First, we have tried to plan as best as we can the launch of the tram line, but we have said many times here that we will not launch anything if we are not ready to do so. I think it was May 31st when we had a subcommittee LRT. We thought probably end of August, and we didn't commit to year because I didn't want to take any risk. But we thought at that time that probably at the end of August, we could be ready to open the lines. And the last thing that I wanted to deal with is we can, but because we haven't implemented new ways to bus everywhere, we will not go. That would be ridiculous. So we took the decision. This is my department and under my leadership. I take this responsibility fully and I respect it. And it was the right one to get ready. So when we would take the decision, we would be ready to do. And it was also the plan to communicate to people because as you know, we have a pole, we have the current stop, and we hide the other one. So 2 weeks before to launch, we would remove and say this end, let's say April 17, this will begin April 18. So it's a part of the equation for the customers. And now we just set the date, which is great because that will give to the communications team the sufficient time to communicate, and to make sure that our customers will hear somewhere that, hey, this is coming, and we will not under rush situation. So this is great for that, for April. But at that time, when we took the decision, it because we thought that we could be there this fall for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that the accountability and you sort of saying that you made the right decision. That's your job, and I appreciate the accountability there. But I'm thinking back to 2011 when we did the major route optimizations. Back then, what we did was well, I wasn't here, but what OC did was, you fixed little plastic things, cheap little plastic things underneath existing bus signs that say, hey, these big changes are coming up, check your route. And that seemed like a much more reasonable campaign than sending teams out to replace bus stop signs twice, possibly 3 times to rewrap them. But that's just perhaps something to consider, or maybe tightening up that timeline and starting it at trail running, right? When trail running for the East End extension starts, perhaps that's when we can start replacing the bus stop signs. So, optically, and then even just from the resource, in my mind, the resource use standpoint, it's, I unfortunately don't agree with your decision, but I do respect that, that was your decision to make. However, that's just my feedback for that. I'll come back on the list, so I don't hold up all the time. Thanks.
Chair, if I may, because it's important to bring that to do what we have done, we needed 10 weeks. It's not an easy job. It's not a quick job. And we wanted to make sure that we do it properly. Can you imagine if we mix 2 stops? So it was the right decision to do so.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you very much. First of all, I don't normally bring ward issues to this governance table, but I do want to thank Renee and Pat for helping me resolve an issue that we're working on with the proposed new ways to bus. It was causing a lot of strife in my community. Very happy that a change will be made. I just have a couple questions on the presentation. They should be very quick questions. I'm going to ask my first one in French. So, Councillor Tierney, do you want to put your headset on? Okay. Absolutely. Perfect. It's just a continuation of Councillor Lowe. Lorsque vous avez dit que
So when you
l'acquisition
said
des autobus Para est terminée,
that you finished the purchase of the Paratranspo minibus, did you finish with the order,
nous avons une
or
confirmation de leur arrivée.
do we have the confirmation date of the arrival of these minibus? Answer: yeah, all the documentation is completed. We even know who's going to deliver these minibus. So we're working with a virtual link. We're expecting dates for delivery, and discussions are ongoing.
Alors, est-ce que nous
Question:
prévoyons, les avoir avant le
do you think
lancement
that we will
de
receive them
l'autobus
before
inventé?
the new ways to bus? Answer: there's no link with new ways to bus. Maybe for the on-demand service, but we knew it. We know that the minivans will be used at the end. We're going to actually put a priority on Paratranspo. We really want to improve Paratranspo service. When we're going to be receiving the 82 new buses for Paratranspo, we're going to be using the last 10 for the on-demand service. Question: we're going to be losing some bus circuits, so thank you very much for your answer. Let's switch to the other language.
Sorry, with respect to the September service update, it said adult, senior, Equipass, and community pass sales combined are up 24%. Is there any breakdown of those passes? Like, are we seeing a bigger percentage of adult passes being sold or Equipasses? Like, can you break down the 24%? Like, does that make sense?
We do have those numbers, Chair. I'm just trying to pull them up here on my screen. So if you give me, my Outlook seems to have been frozen just now.
Okay, I'll let you unfreeze that. And I wanted to know, we talk about revenue from single ride fares being up 27%. Do we get a breakdown overall? Like, I know, adults passes or adult single day is one particular fare. We have fares for different groups. Do we know what the average fare is when we factor in free rides and that sort of thing? Like, an adult ticket is $375, is it now? $385?
Mr. Chair, we can break that down to some degree. Not 100%. The cash is just cash. We can't tell exactly how that was, but any of the things that were credit card taps or Presto taps, we can break that down. What I'd suggest, Mr. Chair, is if the councillor has specific questions, we work directly with her and decide whether we need to share it further. Would that work?
Yeah, absolutely. With paratransport ridership was up 14%. September ridership, has it been up consistently this calendar year? Do we know?
This is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And with respect to the new ways to bus, the delay to spring, do we see, and perhaps this was asked earlier, any of the impacts, any of the changes that were proposed in order to route local routes to some of the newer stations? Do we see any impacts to delaying the launch of new ways to bus in that some of the proposed buses were to take people to these new stations? And would there be any service adjustments that could be made if in the interim while we wait for the launch of new ways to bus?
Mr. Chair, we have a few route changes that will come into effect when lines 2 and 4 open. And that will allow people primarily in Riverside South and the east part of Barrhaven to have very easy access to Limebank Station. North of Leitrim Station, north of South Keys Station, there's already a lot of bus routes connecting to line 2. But it will take until new ways to bus till we can reroute all the routes to take full advantage of the capacity and speed of the new lines.
Okay, thanks. Like one of my colleagues mentioned, I think it was you, Councillor Tierney, about the recruitment, 828 new bus operator trainees. That's amazing. Do we know how many have left in the same time though? Like, what is our net that we're up overall?
Chair, I don't have this info, but we can have it definitely, yeah, we can bring it at the next TC.
Okay, excellent, thanks. And then my colleague also asked about fair enforcement. He was reading off my notes. So I just want to ask a question. We don't get any, I know there's no way to break down the data about who's getting, who's getting fined, right? Because we do have concerns if people are, just skipping out on fares, or if they are generally in a position that they can't afford to take transit. There's no way of getting any data on that, is there?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. You are correct. We are not allowed to collect data on people's, I guess, like, I'm not sure what the right word, but lifestyle or position there. We are not allowed to collect that type of data, nor would we be allowed to share any of that.
Okay, and currently the fines go through the province. Do we, I know we only get a percentage of those funds back. Do we get data on how many fines were like challenged and they didn't have to pay? Do we get any of that data back from the province at all?
Again, thank you for the question. At that time, I do not have that answer. This is relatively new to us, but we can look into it and see if that data will be available.
Okay, perfect. And when we talked about the fact that it's moved, like it's still going to be issued, like it's still going to be a provincial offense. It's just that we're going to be getting a larger proportion of the funds back. Is that, I didn't quite understand the change and when that would take effect.
Chair, this is correct. So actually when we give a ticket, that goes to the province, and it's the province's responsibility to make sure that you pay your ticket. And then we will have a reimbursement from the province directly to TRANSPO. This is brand new. And this is a good news, because by having this money back, we will be able to have more inspectors and try to reduce, not eliminate, but reduce for sure the fare evasion.
Okay, excellent. And when you talked about there being a fare compliance blitz until the end of September, but we have these fare inspectors, so we're no longer blitzing? Were there people that were hired temporarily to blitz?
So normally we have 4 inspectors that are, they are permanent employees under the SCU's folks. And because the bus drivers and the union have reported to us that a lot of people don't pay. So we have decided to make a blitz. We started to work on that, I think it was last spring. So we had to hire temporarily people. We had to train them. And with the results after the blitz, we have taken the decision to continue, because we see that that added a lot of value to do so, because we have to stop this hemorrhage for sure.
Okay, thank you. And then just one question on that, I was just curious when it's got the results, 15 warnings and 904 provincial offense notices. Why would you get a warning? Is it discretion of the fare inspector?
Thank you for the question, Chair. There may be some that are at the discretion of the fare inspector, but predominantly the warnings are based on age.
Based on what?
Age. Youths.
Okay, so the younger, okay. So, but is there an element of discretion, like,
There is an element.
if
of discretion.
somebody is using a train for shelter and it's in a bad position, there is discretion being utilized?
Again, thank you for the question, Chair, and you are correct. Yes, there is an element of discretion and exactly what you were indicating. There's not a lot of point in issuing a ticket to somebody that we will not receive it. We try to employ other means to solve those issues.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that that is in process. Thank you. I'll leave it there for today.
Okay, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you. And thanks for Councillor Carr for asking about the net increase on the basis of the hiring. I'd be very interested in seeing that number as well. It's an impressive number to hire, but I'd be interested in knowing what the net increase is. A couple of quick questions arising from the presentation. Sorry, I've lost the presentation. We used to get a slide indicating why trips were undelivered. There was a breakdown between maintenance issues, traffic issues, and driver issues. Do you have those numbers available for the most recent period?
I don't have the percentages available here, but we do can say that, in September, the trips that were not delivered were mostly due to general traffic issues and mechanical issues. Those would be the bulk of the issues that we're facing.
Could we start getting that number again? I found it very helpful to be able to talk to residents. The other stat we got was like a top 3 canceled route. Do you know what those top routes were that saw canceled trips?
Again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, Chair, but we can bring those back.
Thanks. I'm wondering, can you start including that in the presentation as well? Because I'll just keep asking about it each meeting if it's not in there.
Chair, if I may, we used to report those, but we had a number of KPIs and we're just trying to bring a summary instead of everything. But if I'm not mistaken, those numbers, we will report them 4 times a year. So what you are asking today, would you like to have them monthly, even if we will report them quarterly? Just to, we don't want to be here for one day because
200 page.
We have a lot of job to do, as you know. And if we can bring that to attention 4 times per year, that will be helpful for us as well. But if we have a problem, we will bring it in for sure.
The undelivered trips stat and the reasons for that is something like I'm interested in keeping track of in as close to real time as possible. We've seen this tension in the city as the feds have mandated a new level of return to office, which is creating congestion, which is slowing down your service, which is reducing the number of people who want to get onto the bus, who get into their cars, creating increased congestion, and so on and so forth. I'd be really interested in seeing on a monthly basis how congestion is affecting your ability to deliver service as a particularly timely discussion, especially as we go into the budget discussion. Top 3 routes. It's just nice to be able to say they're all in Riley's Road. Sorry, love you, man. The top trips undelivered. Oh, and then the chair and I were looking at the slide, and I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me with respect to the increase in single fare sales, the increase in monthly pass sales, both of which were somewhere in the vicinity of 25% around there, with only 4% additional weekly boardings, and that didn't make sense to us. Should weekly boardings not be a little more similar to the sales numbers? They're right.
Thank you for the question, Chair. The numbers that we've reported and the indicators don't reflect all of our ridership. So youth passes, for example, were not part of that, and youth passes do make up a significant portion of our ridership.
Okay.
Those have not gone up. Those had gone up in previous years already and returned to close to pre-pandemic levels.
Yep.
And so with those passes not increasing to the same level that we've seen for adult passes, for example, the weighted average would be lower than what you're seeing. So that's kind of part of the disconnect between the fare sales and the ridership figures that we're seeing.
Okay. I will continue to work through that. It makes sense that, obviously the different fare classes increase at different rates, and that would affect the number of boardings. So, all right, thank you. That's all.
Yeah. The number of students riding our system is such a massive proportion of ridership that that's what's kind of skewing the numbers. Yeah.
Because it's a constant.
Yeah.
Fluctuating the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know the staff have been working hard on, with OSTA, as a result of some of the challenges we're having with them and with getting kids to, schools and such. Specific to me, there was a catchment area change affecting St. Mother Teresa's High School. And that has shifted a lot of the, transit and busing requirements for a lot of the students there. I know that your team have been working hard on this, but it's a source of frustration in the community that we haven't gotten that fixed just yet. Can staff provide any further details or a start state for that new service?
Merci, monsieur. Merci, monsieur le président. How's that? There we go. That's better. Thank you for the question, Councillor. We have from OSTA the home locations of about 230 students who are going to that one school. This was a late request to us that came to us in August after we'd already prepared the September schedules. But we've planned some bus routes that we'd be able to use to move those couple of hundred customers to school in the morning and back home in the afternoons. Based on our current schedules, we found that we would need to add 5 more buses to our service every day over the number that we do right now. So our fleet maintenance team, along with the other work that you've heard about, is working on changing the arrangements to try to get 5 more buses on the road every day from the same fleet that we have. As you know, we have enough operators to drive those buses. We just have to find a way to produce those buses reliably every morning so there's not an impact on overall system reliability. We are getting closer to that. We don't have a start date yet, but we're optimistic that we'll be able to give the councillor a start date quite soon.
I appreciate that, and we'll follow up on bus capacity issues in the next segment when we talk about that. So thank you very much. With regard to the new ways to bus routes, understanding that the decision's been made that we're going to look at a spring start to the new ways to bus, which is a little bit longer than I had anticipated from the start state of the Trillium line. I really have 2 questions that surround that. The first one is, we have a number of Carleton University students out in the Barrhaven area. How are they going to get to Limebank Station effectively in order to take advantage of that line?
Mr. Chair, the opening of line 2 and the bus route changes that go along with it on day 1 will help in a number of ways. One of the ways is that from Barrhaven, Route 74 and 99 will connect to Limebank Station. So a large part of Barrhaven will have a 1 bus connection to Limebank Station. Another way is that what many people from Barrhaven did before the northern part of line 2 closed in 2020 for construction, is they would ride to Tunney's Pasture, go 1 stop on the train to Bayview Station, and make a very quick trip south from Bayview to Carleton Station. So they'll have both of those improved opportunities when O-Train line 2 opens, and then they'll have additional opportunities for more parts of Barrhaven with routes like the new Route 110 and the new Route 70 connecting over to Limebank Station.
Okay, that's good news, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And the other piece to the new ways to move that certainly we're anticipating greatly is the 275 and the implementation of that, because at present we have a 75 route that routinely is extremely crowded coming through Half Moon Bay. And it's not just a volume issue, it's also an issue of reach, because we have a lot of these new sprawled out subdivisions out on the edges of the community that will be much better served when we have that complement of a 275 plus the 75, as opposed to the current operations of just the 75. So I guess my question would be, do we need to wait until April to get the 275 laid on? And if that's the case, is there scope to increase some of the capacity of the 75s that are currently in service? Because we do have a significant uptick since the start of September on that line.
Mr. Chair, yes, we really do need to wait till April to start the new bus routes, not just Route 275, but the other new routes across the system, because of the complexity and the size of the change. Between now and then, though, we absolutely have the ability to add capacity where it's needed, whether that means assigning a larger bus to a trip or sending an extra trip to carry more people. So I know that Councillor Hill's been engaged with some of my colleagues already on the details, and other councillors across the city have also given us reports, and we're following up all of those, and whether there's plus watching all the data that we receive through all other sources, where there's a continued indication that there's more customers traveling, we'll make the arrangements to add capacity. It might be that day to day, some of those things are one-day issues, which would need a different kind of solution than just adding more trips.
I'm optimistic from what I've seen, though. It seems as though there's been a significant spike in ridership, at least from out in Barrhaven since September. Is that aligned with what our predictions were, or has it surpassed our expectations for transit ridership?
It's aligned, very much aligned with the numbers that we showed you in the presentation, that you know, our ridership calculations will show September ridership being the highest since the pandemic began. You saw what their indicators are about past sales. It's indicating to us that adult customers who've been working at home are returning to on-site work more, and they have their own distinct travel patterns, different from the larger group of customers we have right now who are traveling to school and for other purposes. So as you saw across the system, 12% more people using park and ride lots. That's a big increase, and some of those are from Fallowfield, some from Greenboro, some from Place d'Orléans, and other park and ride lots across the city. So we'll see whether the patterns are consistent across the whole city or if they're geographically different. But at a system level, we're carrying a lot more customers than we did. How it compares to the budget, that's a separate discussion that the GM talked about and that we're still working on.
As we get ready to open up lines 2 and 4, can you confirm what the status of our operator training is? Are we on track to be ready for opening in mid-November?
Chair, we'll give a complete update when we will finish the trial running, and we are still working on scenarios. But yes, we continue the training for sure, and we will continuously train people, because by experience, people, will raise a hand to drive the train, and they will give up because they will say, "Oh no, this is not for me." So we will need to think about attrition. The good news is, because we have now all our bus drivers, and we have secured a quantity of them that will go there, so we don't have this issue. But this is something that we will need to deal with for a couple of months, I would say. But for now, I'm optimistic, I would say. But I will give you a thorough and full update when we will come back after the trial running to walk you to that.
Okay, and just to complement that, and because I usually tie safety questions to the ultimate regulatory authority, can you confirm to me who that is? So when you are looking at the training of your operators, who says that they've done enough training, or that they're certified, or that they have to do X, Y, and Z? Is that OC TRANSPO? Is that a third party, or is that Transportation Safety Board? Who is the authority that defines that regulation?
So maybe Dwayne can complete, but I can start for sure. We work with Transport Canada. The legislation for the Trillium line is totally different from the Conversion line. So it's Transport Canada was the authority. And the way that it works for the training, it's OC TRANSPO. I think it was in 2022 or 2023. We proposed our schedule for the training to Transport Canada, who accepted it. And then this year, when we were ready to start the training, we worked with Siemens and with the team, with RCP thing. The team was in charge of the construction. And we provided this training. And when the construction side will give when we will go to the revenue service, it's OC TRANSPO will be in charge of everything. So now we are in the mix of construction and OC TRANSPO, and Transport Canada for sure is working with us. And we report to Transport Canada on what our intent, how much hours do we need to how many hours we want to train our people, etc. So this is something that we do with them.
Okay, so.
Did I forget something, Dwayne?
No, actually, Madame Almakar, you covered it very well. That's pretty much it.
Maybe just to expand on the answer a little bit. So we will be expecting Transit Next to provide an engineering safety assurance case for the whole system. And part of their responsibility and accountability for providing that safety case will be a whole slew of documents, safety justification reports, and that will include an operator's safety case. So the operator's safety case will be prepared by a consultant that will review both the number of training hours, the certification program, the number of personnel, both the operators, the controllers, and other OC personnel. That will be wrapped up in the operator's safety case, which will be provided to Transit Next as they provide the complete safety assurance case for the whole line.
Thank you. And my last question, I'm hoping you're going to answer it with a yes. I note that your your line one maintenance work starts on Saturday, the 19th of October, running for a couple of weeks. And I just wanted to see if there was scope if I could come out at some point to observe a bit of the work, see what's going on, look at the scope and scale, say thank you to some of the maintainers, and get an appreciation firsthand for the work that's being done.
Chair, I will say no.
Okay. That is all my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in our service review working groups, we talked a little bit about how, obviously here we talk about how not having enough bus drivers is a problem for many reasons, but in that working group meeting, we talked about how not having enough bus drivers means there's an excessive amount of overtime. So now that we have enough drivers, do you imagine that, and are you already seeing that overtime costs have reduced and potentially to the point where even though we have more drivers, we have lower costs?
This is a great question. So the way that it works, for sure, the more we have bus drivers, less we should rely on overtime. But it's not as simple that it is, because we will all the time we'll need to rely on overtime, specifically with the operations, because sometimes you need someone on the spot. So the person was maybe in the lobby, it's too late. So it's better to go to ask someone who's driving the bus and to just continue for another ride, etc. So we will rely on overtime, but definitely because now we have our numbers, we should reduce this overtime significantly.
Wonderful. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, now it's my self-serving comment. So the new ways to bus, so we delay it to April, fine. But how about for a particular area, let's say in Canada North, that has never had a bus ever? Arcadia, as I may say at every single meeting, whether it applies or not. For Arcadia, is it not possible to add in a route now because they've never had a route? Like how I understand from Councillor Hill's comment that it's complex, but they've never had a route in this area at all. So do we really have to wait till April is my question?
Mr. Chair, with the complexity and size of the service changes that are coming up as part of New Ways to Bus, I'm afraid, yes, we'll have to wait till it all goes in together.
Okay, I wasn't happy with that question. The other one, but it could balance out. My last question is the route review that we just did was pretty significant. We had a consultant. When we add more LRT lines, will it require, and I mean, Mr. Scrimger indicated we'll add more in, but will it require as extensive a route review with a consultant and everything else as we add more LRT routes?
Chair, we have incorporated everything on our network review. So we are well prepared for the Trillium Line, we're well prepared for the east and the west.
Super. Okay, great. Thanks. That's balanced out. I still don't like the no, but I'm moving along.
Okay, I think we're going back on a second round to Councillor Brockington.
Just to be 100% crystal clear, the New Ways to Bus campaign is a result of the route review. It's the same thing, correct? Okay. Did I hear correctly, though, as a question that Councillor Hill posed about how will people get from Barrhaven to Limebank? Is this a new bus that is being created the day the Trillium Line opens?
Mr. Chair, we have had arrangements in place for some time, ready to extend routes 99 and 74 to Limebank Station as soon as that station opens. Those two routes will be able to go on the day the train opens. The other bus routes will go with the complete reorganization of the bus route network.
Okay, so that example is just unique to that current run. We don't have other bus routes that are either being created or extended the day the Trillium Line opens.
I'm scanning my memory. I believe not. There will be other, new bus stops coming into operation, like in front of the new entrance into the train platforms at Walkley Station, for instance. So there'll be a new connection to the bus routes that are on Walkley Road when the train opens. There'll be more value to the connections at places like Carleton Station when the train opens than there is today. So there's still new opportunities to travel using the line, even without the bus route changes. But the big bus route changes coming up with New Ways to Bus in April will give even more connections. I hope that helps to answer.
Fair enough, thank you. So my other question is just on the fare compliance. Sorry to come back to this. There've been some good questions and comments. Do we have video surveillance in our LRT stations that can watch and keep account on people who are evading fare, who are not paying?
Thank you for the question. You're absolutely correct. We do have video surveillance, and I know they do monitor the fare gates. We've never used them for that purposes. We may need additional resources. I'd have to take a look at it, but conceptually, I imagine it is feasible.
Yeah, I was in Europe last week. London, in their peak stations, has personnel at the gates to ensure people are tapping. Other jurisdictions I visited where there's no staff, it's constant fare evasion. People just piggybacking, trying to cram as many people in as possible. Obviously, our resources are limited. We have a finite amount of staff. So I asked my surveillance question because if you know, like when I'm at Rideau Station, I'm just hanging out, waiting for someone. All I see is continuous fare evasion. And this argument from some that the poorest of the poor are the fare evaders, this is not true. These are people who have just gone shopping, who have spent significant amount of money, who are well-dressed, evading fare because they can get away with it. They don't want to pay. And so if we know that there are certain stations where fare evasion is constant and we have a limited supply of fare enforcement officers, then perhaps we can use what we already have, the technology, to determine where to deploy them. But I think if you see an officer standing there right at the fare gates, that in itself is a deterrent to evade fare. And like I said, in high volume stations in other jurisdictions I've seen, even in Toronto, when I'm down there with AMO taking the subway, you've got staff there monitoring that people tap. So anyway, former Councillor Meehan raised questions in the past about fare compliance. OC TRANSPO really has not been able to give an accurate answer about the extent of fare evasion. I think it's significant how much fare revenue we're losing, but I appreciate the campaign that has happened. I appreciate the campaign that will continue. And just to borrow what Councillor Lowe told me, just the fact that people are more aware that fare evasion officers are on the system and out there is something at the back of your head. I go, oh, they could be on the route this time. I need to tap. So anyway, thanks, Chair.
Dwayne?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention, though, that the tactics that you've discussed are actually employed with our fare evasion, our fare enforcement officers right now. We regularly deploy them at various stations at those gates. You're absolutely correct. Sometimes it's just their presence that is required. I'd also like to note that Madame Almokar has asked us to continue to work on this problem, and we'll take your suggestion into account to use our constables. Also, if I could, I did receive some data from your previous question that I can answer right now, if you're okay with that. In 2023, of the occurrences, 66 were assaults. 12 of them required OPS to attend. There's two main reasons that OPS would attend. One would be a capacity issue with our special constable units if they are attending other significant items. And then the other would be if it's an escalating nature of the assault. Not necessarily an injury, something a little bit higher degree than that, weapons or that nature.
Toronto did an audit of their fare evasion. And I believe the number they came up with was it costs them $124 million a year in Toronto, or 12% of their budget. So we're a different system. There's different variables, but it's significant. Yeah. Councillor Lowe.
Thanks, Chair. I stepped out for a little bit because I had to, but so I apologize if this question is already asked. The interim changes that I think Pat had mentioned, that'll sort of bus changes that'll happen when line 2 opens with routes 99 and 74. I'm glad to hear that I'm glad to hear that there will be some sort of bus service in the interim. You had mentioned that things were built into provision for that. Can you sort of can you expand on that for me? Like, is this extra layup time? With the 74, I guess like it's easier because that's the end of the route, but with the 99, that's the middle of the route, and then you have some trips that go to Herdman during peak. So, can you expand on those provisions a little bit for me?
Sure. Mr. Chair, if we try to cast our mind back to May 2023, we brought a presentation to the Light Rail Subcommittee at that time to show how bus routes would be adapted to connect with line 2, and we showed these changes, how service to the airport would replace Route 97, how service along the corridor of line 2 would replace part of Route 99 and would replace also the current line 2 replacement bus. After we gave that presentation, we conducted the route review and developed the whole New Ways to Bus, which largely, built on that, but supplanted it as well. Since it will take until April 2025 for New Ways to Bus to come into effect, we have the other original plan, which has been possible all along because of scheduling extra time into the schedules of Route 74 and 99. Now, as the councillor says, for Route 74, right now they're just waiting extra time at Riverview Station, and we'll be able to use that time to extend those buses over to Limebank Station. For Route 99, there is extra time in the schedule, but because the extension of Limebank Station is the middle of the route, when we bring that into effect, there will be, it will delay the start times after the little detour. So for anyone going east out of Riverside South, not much of an effect. It will just get you to South Keys Station a few minutes later by bus than it would today. For people going west from places along Spratt towards Barhaven, they'd be picked up a little bit later because the bus will have gone to Limebank Station before it comes back to the corner of Limebank and Spratt.
Okay, great. Appreciate the details and honestly looking forward to it. There are a lot of very excited residents in both sides of Barhaven, sorry, that are looking forward to this easier trip to get to South Keys, Carleton, Carling, etc. I want to circle back to a bit of the fare enforcement question again. The topic, sorry. It's nice to hear that this blitz will continue to the end of the year. That's going to be a lot of data. That's going to be a lot of information about what's happening and all the stuff that we have to do to sort of try to address that. will we get like at a 2025 Transit Commission meeting, will we sort of get a nice little report that says, this is what we observed, this is what we might need, these are our future strategies for fare enforcement, and you know, even down to things about like how tickets are addressed after. Like recently, for example, we shifted our ASC to our automated speed enforcement tickets to administrative penalties rather than tying up the court system. Like think all sorts of strategies like that. Will we sort of get something like that in early 2025 after the blitz is done?
Chair, this is correct. And because now the province has changed the way that they will bring the money to the city, so LC TRANSPO will receive it. I have asked my team to start working on a scenario where we will have more fare inspectors, so we don't necessarily need to blitz, so we'll be present.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I'm seeing no more questions. Thank you to the entire team for the updates. So much going on and many things heading in a good direction. So thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes to reset before the next item. So we will try to be quick. So let's be back. We'll restart it just before noon. Thank you.
I'm here as well, Chair. It's Councillor Menard.
Thank you, Councillor Menard. Okay, I think we have everyone here from staff, and we do have quorum, 6 of 9. We only need 5. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item. Next item is 6.1, Zero Emission Bus Program Update Report. And I'll turn things over to staff for a presentation to start us off.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président et membres de la Commission du Transport.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Binel. I'm responsible of the four-wheel program. Today, we would like to present you an update on the zero emission bus program.
Positive progress we continue to make towards transitioning our fleet of buses from diesel to electric. And I believe we have a short video to start.
It's on its way.
Okay, if we could just bring up the presentation, please. The next slide, please. In previous updates, we spoke about the successful pilot project, which showed the battery electric buses can successfully operate here in our city. Since introduced into service in early 2022, our electric buses have accumulated over 350,000 kilometers. They've also proven reliable with a mean distance between failure of 6,200 kilometers. The MDBF is an industry standard that compares the number of failures that result in a bus being out of service against the number of kilometers. Next slide, please. Safety of top of mind for my team and everybody at OC TRANSPO. To ensure the safety of our operations, we are following the hazard and risk hierarchy of controls per the Canadian Health and Occupational Health and Safety. This layered approach ensures the utmost safety of our staff, public, and our asset to eliminate or reduce hazards. They include things like having a vehicle battery thermal management system, upgrading our fire suppression system, minimizing the number of buses per charging zones, having proper safety procedures, PPE for our staff. We have also set up a fire safety working group with representation from IWSD, OFS, building code to review all areas of the program, and are in discussions with other transit agencies, industry experts, associations like OPTA, UITP, and will be undertaking an independent peer review of the program. I will now pass it over to Matt.
Thank you, Dan. Next slide, please. So I'm Matt Knight. I'm the manager of design and construction facilities and infrastructure services, and my team has the pleasure of overseeing and delivering the infrastructure for the zero emission bus program. This slide here shows the multiple civil infrastructure projects occurring at the Saint Laurent complex. The work consists of retrofits to the existing north and south garages, including the aforementioned sprinkler upgrades, structural support for charging infrastructure, dedicated electrical bus maintenance bays, and construction of a new garage for parking and charging of the 80 40-foot buses.
Matthew, can I just ask you to bring the mic a little bit closer? Sorry, thank you.
I have experts here, thank you. Civil infrastructure work is proceeding on schedule, and the first phase of the south garage retrofits reached substantial completion just recently. Next slide, please. As expected, there are significant electrical upgrades to be completed at the Saint Laurent complex to support the program. These can be divided into three parts. First, off-site, we require additional power to the complex. To that end, the city has signed an offer to connect with Hydro Ottawa for the construction of a permanent off-site substation and interim power supply to the complex. Second, on-site substation and distribution is required to get the power to the buildings. Currently, this is in design, with long lead equipment being procured in advance. Finally, charging infrastructure, so transformers, switchgear, chargers, and pantographs have been procured for the first tranche of buses and are presently being installed in the south garage. Equipment required for the rest of the fleet will also be procured in advance. We are taking a phased approach to the infrastructure delivery, and as each phase of the civil work is completed, electrical work begins in that location. Now I'll hand off to Rayuya for an update on IT changes.
Merci beaucoup. Good morning. Nous passons maintenant au sujet des systèmes
Let's go back now to the IT system within our project. We're going to have to update many of our software. We need some specific functions to manage the electric buses.
I'll talk briefly about the IT work plan in the context of the ZEB program. We use several specialized software applications to deliver transit service, and these have been primarily designed around diesel buses. Some software that we have wasn't built to store e-bus information and doesn't have capabilities or functionality around e-buses. So early in the ZEB program, we did a full software review of our solutions to find gaps so that we can be ready for the e-buses. 3 of our main software solutions will require upgrades. The first is the HASTA software, which is our planning and scheduling system. This is the one that we use for building the transit service schedule and defining work assignments for bus operators. The current version of HASTAS is unable to incorporate parameters like e-bus range or charge times to build the highly optimized work schedule that it does. Currently, so for the short term, manual input would be required by staff to identify trips that are suitable for e-buses. This is not obviously sustainable once the fleet starts to grow in size. So we have a project to upgrade HASTAS to the latest version 2024, and that version includes full electric bus support and capabilities. The second system to upgrade is the yard management system, or YMS. That's the software that's used to assign buses to blocks of work as they leave the garage, and also to manage their parking locations in the yard. The current solution of yard management is a very old legacy system and really can't support anything to do with e-buses. It's past end of life. So we have completed a procurement for a new solution, and we're in the process of implementing. So the new yard management solution is e-bus capable, and will also have to integrate with data from directly from the buses and from the charging system so that it can facilitate e-bus placement in the garages, the right locations. The third system and the most critical is CleverCAD, which is the software that's used in the control room to monitor bus service and to make adjustments when there are disruptions on street. CleverCAD doesn't currently display electric bus data that would be necessary to make decisions in the control room. So an upgrade project will allow e-bus data to be transferred directly from the bus, at a regular interval. And that will allow the controller to see things like the state of charge of the bus or the distance to empty of a bus, and also receive low battery alerts and things like that so that they're able to make better decisions. Finally, we do have some new software that's coming on that's specific to the e-bus charging infrastructure. So this is something we've never used before. It's called the EMS, or the Energy Management System. It's a cloud-based system that allows us to sort of remotely monitor and manage all of the fleet of chargers that are in the garages. And it also tracks the energy dispensed to each bus. So the EMS obviously will need to be onboarded into our operational processes, as with every new system. And it'll also have an integration to our M5 maintenance management system, because that's where we track things like fuel consumption or energy consumption and cost, cost of energy by vehicle. So as with all new software tools, we'll be, applying all of the security assessments and ensuring that this system complies with the IT security policies. So that's a look at the IT scope for ZEB. I'll pass it back to Dan.
Merci beaucoup. Training is a key component of the electric bus program, and we are building upon the foundation of the pilot project, which we have already provided training to 55% of the operators and a various level of training to 28% of the maintenance staff. Training and development for the maintenance team is job specific and ongoing to align with the onboarding of additional buses. In addition, we currently have and will continue to have on-site support from bus manufacturers, and the electrical infrastructure will be supported by Enviri and the charging equipment manufacturer. Next slide, please. Training requirements is outlined in our OC TRANSPO electric safety program. Job-specific training can be described as level 1 for employees with no or low exposure to electrical hazards, like bus operators, garage attendants, administration staff, and mechanics with low exposure to high voltage equipment. These employees will or will receive general electrical safety awareness training. Level 2 is for qualified employees permitted to work on or near high voltage systems. These positions, like electricians, mechanics, exposed to high voltage equipment, supervisors, they have or will receive job specific and emergency response training, which include high voltage electrical systems, arc flash, and specific energy storage systems, traction motors specific to the electric buses. Next slide, please. In the next few slides, I will provide a bus procurement update, and pleased to inform you that we currently have a team, Jasjeet, Bill, Jeremy, and Vincent at the New Flyer production facility this week, inspecting buses in production, as you could see on the slide in front of you. Next slide, please. Thirteen new Flyer buses are currently in production, with the first scheduled to arrive in Ottawa at the end of October. New Flyer has informed us of a 4 to 8 week delay impacting 16 of the 22 buses originally scheduled for Q4 2024 that will now arrive in Q1 of 2025. And Nova buses are still on schedule and entering production in November and scheduled for delivery in Q1 of 2025. Next slide, please. In previous slides, I went through a lot of numbers. In this slide, we are showing a breakdown of when we expect to receive buses from now until 2027. We have also moved to an all 40-foot electric bus procurement for the 350 buses. due to only having one bus manufacturer of 60-foot buses in Canada, limited improvement on battery range, no testing of high-capacity electric buses completed in Ottawa. The overall impact of this decision has been mitigated by a shift of high-capacity service ratio from 40% to 15%, which aligns with ridership in O-train extensions. I will now pass it over to Rami.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. Bonjour. I wanted to provide an update in response to questions raised at previous Transit Commission meetings regarding our contingency plan to balance the age of our current fleet with the timelines for bringing new e-buses. We committed to providing more information, so today I'd like to provide a quick update on the contingency plans that we have been exploring. Our goal in this process is to find a cost-effective means of maintaining the capacity of the fleet while we manage the delivery timelines for our zero-emission buses. At this time, we have three potential options. Option A, purchase new diesel buses. Currently, there is only one manufacturer available to us that can provide diesel articulated buses with deliveries not expected until Q4 of 2026 at the earliest. Q4 2026. Option B, purchase used diesel articulated buses, which our team is currently exploring. We have identified potentially suitable buses with stainless steel structures that have undergone midlife refurbishment. This option, if feasible, will allow us to acquire some number of used buses that require little to no refurbishment that we can use for an additional 5 to 6 years and would be more reliable than the worst buses we have in our fleet today. All three options have their advantages and disadvantages. Buying new buses moves us away from achieving our goal of 100% zero-emission buses in our fleet by 2036. Buying used buses is a less expensive option and would have less of an impact on our overall transition timelines. But this option is contingent on the availability and the conditions of these buses. Fully refurbishing our own will put more strain on our resources, which we want to keep focused on the day-to-day operation, as our articulated buses are made of steel and will need full structural refurbishment, which will take time. We continue to explore and assess our options to ensure we always provide a safe and reliable service for our customers. Today, I just wanted to give you a brief update on our progress. However, we will bring a more detailed report for your consideration at the budget recommendation. Cela conclut notre présentation. Nous serions heureux de répondre.
Now I'm ready to answer your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Right to questions for staff. Councillor Hill, you're up first.
Thank you. In the report, you note that there's not been improvement in the feasibility of high-capacity electric buses. What is the current range of the high-capacity electric bus models that you've reviewed, and how does that compare to 40-foot electric buses or high-capacity diesel buses?
Thanks for the question, through your chair. Currently, there is only one bus manufacturer that offers 60-foot electric buses in Canada. The range of our current 40-foot bus is around 250 kilometers. The advertised range for a 60 is slightly higher, however, has not been tested here in Ottawa. And you got to keep in consideration that there are more batteries on those platforms. However, the bus length and the passenger count drives up the weight significantly.
And how does the cost of purchasing high-capacity electric buses compare to the diesel equivalents?
Chair, we don't want to share with you publicly costs because we'll go on tender, but we can say that it's significantly more than we were expected.
Thank you. And based on the report, we'll now be replacing 154 60-foot articulated buses with 40-foot buses. These will have a lower passenger capacity. Even with the new base to bus shifting the ratio of high-capacity buses from 40% to 15%, we're still going to need high-capacity buses to meet the customer's needs along longer routes. What alternatives are you considering at this stage to ensure that we replace our aging 60-foot articulating buses with vehicles of a similar passenger capacity such that we don't leave anybody behind at the platforms?
Mr. Chair, we've calibrated the long-term need for high-capacity buses based on the construction underway right now to replace many of the long trunk bus routes with high-capacity rail lines. Most bus routes across the city will become shorter feeder routes into their nearest O-train station, and therefore the number of high-capacity buses required declines dramatically with the completion of the Stage 2 work. There will always be a need for high-capacity buses on busy routes, the most significant of which is routes 68 and 88, the new Route 68 and the current 88 along Baseline Road, a major long high-capacity corridor planned to be a bus transit way. So the trains are replacing the much of the purpose that high-capacity buses are now used for. And so there should not be any shortage of capacity on any routes with this change from high-capacity 60 and double-deck buses to 40-foot buses.
Thank you, staff. I appreciate the frankness in the report today about the challenges that we faced finding the 60-foot electric buses. And I recall back to when council decided to purchase the electric buses, we included direction to keep council apprised of the process of procurement as we review these new pieces of technology and to be prepared for what we talked about with regard to off-ramps or other options if we ran into significant challenges. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce a direction in the same spirit so that the commission can remain informed of the efforts to review alternatives to replacing our aging articulated buses. Let me just make that bigger for me so I can read it. Thank you. The direction being that transit services staff be directed to provide an update to Transit Commission in Q1 of 2025 on the work to date to evaluate the feasibility of purchasing additional diesel high-capacity buses to supplement phase 1 of the zero emissions bus program.
Staff willing to accept that direction?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councillor Hill?
Yeah, sorry, I was engaged with Jeff's beautiful eyes there for a moment. In the report that you provided in March on the topic, we identified the initial 26 electric buses would be delivered to the city in December of this year. We're expecting the buses now to be delivered in March of 25. We see a smaller rollback for the second tranche of buses in March that we predicted would be delivered in Q4 of 25 and now can expect the finalized delivery in early Q1 of 26. Despite the project setbacks, our projections for the bus delivery in 26 and 27 remain largely the same. Why do you believe that the problems we're facing in procuring our initial buses now will not be repeated in the latter orders?
Thanks for the question, Chair. We believe that the bus quantities that we are ordering for 26 and 27 are achievable. We've been discussing with the bus manufacturers for over 2 years now, since the beginning of the contract adoption with TTC. So can't say that there will not be any delays, but due to the great work that my team is doing with the manufacturers, we believe that we're able to achieve those.
Several of the infrastructure projects have had construction timelines pushed back, including phase 2 of the South Garage and both phases of the North Garage. Why have these timelines slipped, and can we expect further delays as we continue the work on the infrastructure side of the project?
Thank you, Chair. So it depends on the project, but much of the change is due to coordination between the electrical and civil work. We received a report or a schedule from Envari in March of 2024, and we've had to make some changes to the timelines to adjust for that, just to ensure that the civil work precedes the electrical work.
Can the garages operate in partial capacity if the infrastructure projects are not 100% completed prior to the delivery of the fleet?
Yes, we do have some flexibility with every fleet. We have a spare ratio. And if we do have more buses than electrical chargers, it will be a bit of an operation to move them around, but we will be able to manage. But we don't expect to have any impact on operation.
And understanding that we can operate the garages without 100% completion, then what's the latest possible deadline that we would need to complete these infrastructure projects? Or is there any risk of us missing that timeline?
The funding that we have with Infrastructure Canada, the deadline is September of 2027 for final claim or everything finalized by their fiscal year in 2028. We believe that we will achieve that, and we are in constant communication with them, and we'll inform them of any progress or delays if that occurs.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all for now. I'll come back on the list.
All right, Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff. Yeah, Plan B. That's what I've been calling it for a while. And I think I do appreciate, like my colleague said, that we're having this pretty serious conversation. I think we all wanted the half full glass. We all wanted it. We're seeing it across the country. Everyone wants to get on board with e-buses. It's just, there's so many people that want on board. They can't deliver the product. So now we're faced with a situation, and I think we've all talked about it for quite a while, and I'm glad we're having this conversation now because I guess there's a few things. The fleet overall with the articulated buses, the workhorses, the diesels, that you simply put a key in, there's no infrastructure, they've always operated. We've never really had issues. They run forever. Life expectancy based on conversations I've had with other municipalities that to use is a very similar fleet is about 12 to 15 years. I was looking at some of the breakdowns of what we have. The class of 2008 fleet, they're 16 years old. 2009 is 15 years old. The 10s and the 11s, 13, 14 years old. And then we went and endeavored into the double-decker world to deal with high capacity. And we know what's happening with those when it comes to they're on the hoist more than they're on the roads. When it comes to some of the other look, I'm proud of some of the work we've done in the past. We got rid of buses that require you to step up. All our buses back in my first term, we decided to get rid of those and have ramps. There's a lot of good decisions. I think we've tried to endeavor on other things like the hybrid buses, which actually ended up burning more fuel than actually what a regular bus would do. We all want that vision. We want it to happen. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're moving things on a regular basis. Now, I fear we're past the end of the runway when I'm hearing things like, Q4 2026. If we would have purchased these diesel buses back, and nobody has a crystal ball, a year ago, would we have been in a better place? And I'm only asking because we see Edmonton, they're an $82 million lawsuit. They've ditched the electric. They're trying to buy as many diesel. Everyone's racing back to diesel because the leading edge, unfortunately, is not there to be able to deliver right now. Would we have saved a lot more money back then if we would have purchased some articulated diesel buses, knowing that the Alexander Dennis double-deckers are done? If I'm wrong on that, please let me know. I think it's important to understand what kind of costs we're going to incur now that we may have avoided in the past and how we're going to deal with that go forward.
Chair, if I understand your question, Councillor, this is nothing, it's not related to the cost, for sure. It's only the availability because most of the constructors now they move to e-buses, so they don't want to be on the market of diesel buses because a good example in Quebec City, they are not allowed to buy any diesel buses. Otherwise, they will need to pay them from their pocket. It's a little bit different from here because in Quebec, it's 85% of the cost is they can buy is paid by the province and 15% from the
is that provincial legislation?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be clear. So we have the ability to buy diesels here.
Here, yes.
Yes,
We have this ability, but I'm just trying to explain that because Quebec is not in the market anymore for the diesel, so Nova Bus, New Flyers, they don't have any good incentive to move, to continue to
Sure, the province,
diesel buses.
municipalities are corporations of the province, and they've been told that that's the rules. Here, they don't have those rules. So back to my original question, if we would have purchased the diesel buses back a year ago, for high capacity issues, I know we didn't know that the 60-footers would work. Would have they been cheaper a year ago to purchase? Obviously, time of delivery would have been better because now there's a big rush on the diesel buses. would they have been cheaper to purchase? What's the cost of a unit? And maybe I'll just put it in an inquiry. What's the cost of a unit in, 2022 versus $2024 for a diesel articulated bus? There has to be an increase. It can't be the same price.
The answer is no, other than the inflation for sure, because it's the same LRFP. So that Metro.
So it's just actually people flooding the market to get the diesels back. That is the big challenge right now. Okay.
Yeah, so the market is not there. And I know that TTC just bought a couple of diesel buses as well.
Sure.
So, and probably the other agencies will do the same thing as us. And I want to clarify here, I think my colleagues explained very well why we are in this situation. With Infrastructure Canada, the general auditor came and said, slow down, and we welcome those recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. So OC TRANSPO was not prepared to deal with aged buses, and now it's a fact. So we have to. If you remember last fall with the team, we came here and we presented a very important action plan to address the problem. So far, we know now those buses are on very bad shape, so we don't have choice to replace them. But last year, we thought that we could continue to put money on them and try to maintain them. But today we know it's not possible. They are still buses, so the frame is finished. So there is nothing to do. So that's why Rami just said that we're trying to buy maybe with other agencies where they have aluminum buses. So at least we can do something with them. But we will continue to work on that. This is our goal, and we will update councillors here for sure next year.
Yeah, and I'd appreciate that. As a matter of fact, I think we need more frequent, and maybe I'll make it part of my inquiries if we can have it more frequent. I won't give direction because I have a couple other things that I want to ask about it too. But I think this is critical because, you're right. When the presentation came back last time, there was very light indications that we'd have a problem acquiring 60-foot electric buses or even acquiring electric buses, period. Because my understanding, we have 4 electric buses, 3 only are on the road at a time right now. We've never actually had 4 electric buses out. Everyone's looking. Have we ever had 4? There's only 3 out right now, I believe.
Well, a lot of buses are kept behind for training our operators, our maintenance staff, but 4 buses are available either for service or for training on a daily basis.
Okay, but we only use 3 in service and 1 for training and for pilot testing, I assume.
For the most part, that's correct, but we've had at times 4 buses on the road in service.
So, and then of course, we're still behind on those. So it's unfortunately the perfect storm, and we're out of runway now. So when I hear about now we're not getting 60-foot electrics, and we're talking about getting the smaller buses that won't achieve the capacity challenges we're going to have. We're already, based on some of the numbers I'm seeing, we're not even going to be able to achieve what we want, even if we did get all of the 40-foot buses in right now. If you're looking at things on a daily basis on averages, that's one thing, but let's face it, it's all morning and night traffic, and you need those articulated buses. So do you feel confident that the 40-foot buses, the electric buses that are still not totally proven, are going to be able to do these much longer runs, because that's what they'll be doing, that the articulateds would be able to do? And would this require more operators, or are you just going to adhere to the existing schedule and cram the buses fuller?
Mr. Chair, as I spoke of earlier, I'll try and say a little more, that the long distance, high volume function that articulated and double-decker buses have carried out in Ottawa these last 42 years is largely replaced by trains in our new system. The long haul of people from Orleans to downtown, from Nepean to downtown. There will still be a need for some high capacity buses for crosstown service on Baseline. There will still be a need for high-capacity buses for some of the longer feeder routes into Algonquin Station, Moody Station from Barrhaven and from Canada during rush hours. But east of downtown, in downtown, most of the service can be provided best for customers by using 40-foot buses.
Thank you. And I'm only asking that because I see a lot of routes that are now much longer, but they're going to be more dependable. And I agree with that. I think, you know, the 24 is a prime example. That is a long route now. So I asked about diesel buses, and maybe I'll put it in inquiry, but is there any other options? A hybrid, it's a bit of a, it's not what we were sold a bill of goods on, but are they more accessible to purchase than the diesel 60-footers? I'm just trying to look for options here, just knowing, like, I hear a game plan. We're going to go out and try to find some used buses. I don't know where to find them. And I like more certainty, which is what we haven't been dealing with up till now. So is there any other fossil fuel-based technology vehicle that can be purchased quickly and easily that we can offset until we get to full electric?
Thanks for the question, through your chair. The issue with the bus manufacturers and the lead time up, up to 2 years or buying buses is not the technology, either electric, diesel, CNG, hybrid. It's really the capacity and them to add more, production out of their facilities. What they've seen is an uptake in production because of Proterra going out of business. So one of the bus manufacturers now out of the market. Nova is transitioning to a fully electric manufacturer. So that just puts challenges on whoever's remaining in the market.
Okay, fair enough. I might have some further questions, but I do want to thank you for being forthright coming forward on this. And I hope to have more frequent. As of now, though, we don't have any orders for anything used or new from a 60-foot perspective that is not electric, correct?
That's correct, but we are looking at our options as Rami indicated.
And how quickly can you execute that? Does it require anything from a vote perspective? Or is this something that's within the delegated authority to go ahead and make that purchase, notify? I think that's important too, is to notify us immediately. I don't think anyone would begrudge if you went out and found a deal on buses tomorrow and said, we just got to get these things. You don't want to miss that opportunity. Is that something you're prepared to do?
Chair, we have the authority to do what we can do. So we'll come back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thanks very much. In some previous transit commission meetings, I talked about a more steady state of procurement instead of buying very large orders at once. And I'm glad that there's been encouraging information and answers on that we are buying smaller orders, but more frequently, year to year or something like that. Because right now, our situation is we are paying the price of those huge orders from the early and mid 2000s, right? Where we have 90 barrels left that are 18, 19, 20 years old. We have articulated buses that are going to be approaching that age soon as well. And these are large orders of 300 something buses each that we're going to deal with. And when you don't, you can never foresee things like the pandemic and supply chain issues, but this stuff has to be still a level of preparedness that we have to take. And those large orders, sure, we took advantage of discounts, but there was a short-sightedness that's putting us in the current situation now. Have there been any discussions? Can you sort of elaborate on those discussions that you've had with the manufacturer about the lead times? Because even I appreciate like some of the comments about like thinking about other fuel propulsions, and I am favorable towards that too. Like if we look at diesel, if we look at LNG, CNG, RNG, that's what it's called, RNG, diesel electric hybrids or whatever, right? The lead time is still it's not what it was before, right? The TTC's most recent order of hybrid 60-foot buses, they issued the procurement in 2021 and they only started receiving that order mid last year. So, these lead times are industry wide and we're feeling the effects too. So can you elaborate a little bit on those discussions and sort of what the future sort of holds for us?
Yeah, I think, thanks for the question. I think it's just, the pandemic didn't help. A lot of transit agencies slowed down, not sure where ridership was. Now everybody's ramping back up. The manufacturers can't keep up with the productions. The lead times that we're seeing is anywhere between 18 months to 24 months is what we're being informed. And you gotta keep in mind that that only gets locked in once they have a purchase order. So you need to go through your procurement. We need to have the funding in place before that. So there is a significant lead time required for ordering new buses.
Thank you. And if we were to abandon the prospect of replacing our 60-foot buses with most of our 60-foot buses with 40-foot buses, what I see is what the TTC was several years ago before they started investing in their articulated buses. Like this was they had a rail line, they have their subway, and all their buses would sort of come out of their subway, just like what our LRT is going to be when stage 2 opens. So they had very frequent trunk routes. And, are we going to match that frequency? Because what I see out of this is baseline station in the future. I know the plan is to use that lower ratio of high capacity buses on routes like the 74 and 75, but at baseline station in the future, Algonquin station in the future, you have all of these people waiting there and a 40-foot bus shows up, you're going to leave people behind waiting, 15, 20 minutes. And this repeats a lot of the experiences with Tunney's Pasture when that first launched. So are there plans to increase a lot of that service frequency to offset the capacity that we'll lose?
As I said earlier, Mr. Chair, there will always be a need for high capacity buses, both the double deckers that we have and the articulated buses, whichever the options that Rami laid out is chosen. There will always be a need for high capacity buses for the crosstown service on Baseline Road and for the longer feeder routes from Canada to Moody Station, from Barrhaven to Algonquin Station, routes like 61, 62, 63, 74, 75. And we will always make sure that there's enough capacity to move all the people to and from the train station. But the busiest parts of those routes, the parts from Moody to downtown and from Algonquin to downtown, will of course be covered by trains now, which have 9 times the capacity of an articulated bus.
Okay. I know this will come as part of future service planning cycles, but I truly hope that we don't go down this path of thinking the train will solve everything, because it won't. I want to shift over to action. Going back to the electric buses. In the report, it talks about the mean distance between failure as compared to the diesel fleet, the 4E buses compared to the diesel fleet. Is it, when you're using the figure that we're pegging to the diesel fleet, is this like an average, the mean distance between failure for the entire diesel fleet?
Thanks for the question. Yes, that's correct. So we're putting it against the average of all the diesels that we have in the fleet.
So this includes the diesel buses that are 20, 18, 19 years old, that are on the hoist a lot more, right? Do you have that data sort of separated out a little bit? Like what's the mean distance between failure for our Nova buses?
Thanks for the question. Yes, we have that information. The Nova buses are around 14,000.
Okay, so that means that our three-year-old electric buses have an MDBF of 8,000-ish kilometers less than our diesel Novas from about the same time.
Thanks for the question. Yes, that's correct. But you also got to keep in mind that with only 4 buses being pilots, we're using the opportunity of these pilots. All the lessons learned are being introduced on new buses that are being delivered. And also with only 4 buses, any issue that you have on one bus dramatically affects the MDBF. It's one matrix, looking at the big picture, but the buses have been able to meet the kilometers in service required on a yearly basis.
Okay, understood. But purely on numbers, it does look concerning, but I appreciate that extra information, and I guess we'll sort of get more conclusive, more fulsome data once the order starts flowing in, whenever it does. And hopefully we can see some of the oldest buses, least reliable buses, go the way of the high floors, as Councillor Tierney said. Thank you for that. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. While I am very, very keen to electrify the fleet, it is critical, even more critical to me, that we have capacity in the system at any given point. So the procurement of high capacity buses is of significant interest to me. Councillor Hill has directed, and I believe you took it as direction, to report back to us in Q1 2025 with that procurement. That would give you until March 30. How many days are in March 31st, to report back? Can you do that more quickly? What is the timing for your decision?
Chair, definitely we could try in December, but that will take a lot of time. But we have already started to have discussion around that. But as soon as we will have an update, we will bring it here for sure.
Yeah, I would just, it terrifies me to think, especially as ridership appears to be coming back, that we would have any prolonged period when capacity issues are a disincentive to using transit. Of the currently available fleet, how much is high capacity buses? So I guess that's our ticks and any double deckers remaining.
Mr. Chair, it's about 60%. So we have about 352 articulated buses and 78 double deckers. It's a little bit more than 60.
Sorry, of our entire fleet though, with the 40 footers included, how much, what is the proportion of high capacity buses?
Pardon me, with the 40 footers? You mean the articulated and the double deckers?
Yeah, so we have a current diesel fleet.
That's right.
Right? Some of that fleet is 40 footers and then some of it is higher capacity buses.
That's right.
What is that ratio?
Can I help you, Remy? Let's, can you answer Pat for me, please?
I can answer generically. Rami has the exact numbers. It's a little over half of our total fleet is high capacity buses. Rami just said it was about 60%, and I'm inclined to agree with that, though I don't have the exact numbers.
So a little over half of our current diesel fleet is high capacity. The plan was to go to 40%. That plan to go to 40%, was that developed with an understanding of the different capacity needs once LRT is open?
Mr. Chair, that plan, that part of the budget, that part of the long-term capital budget was based on the train lines being open and no global pandemic having occurred.
Okay. Because what I'm hearing is it's fine to go from plan 40 to 15 because the rail is going to open. It's going to replace a lot of that high capacity need. But when I'm listening and thinking about our network today, when we have to run replacement buses, and we will, we have a number of planned LRT closures coming up, special events, getting people to and from Blues Fest or the Stanley Cup Championship this year. Did I say that out loud? The number 14 and the number 11, right? Those, it's not just the long haul routes. I am worried that as bus capacity, or sorry, bus demand starts to rise, it's not just going to rise among commuters. Hopefully we see it rise among people who are all over the city. I would hate to think that we're sending 40 footers out at the same frequency today on some of those routes like the 14 and the 11 in my ward, the 12, the 6. You know, those are all routes where unless we plan on bolstering the resources we make available to OC TRANSPO in order to increase frequency, the only choice we'll have if we don't have the buses is to reduce capacity. Is TTC going to proceed with the acquisition of any 60 footers? Is that still part of their acquisition plan?
So on the electric buses, they are currently procuring 40-foot buses. I'm not aware of a 60-foot electric bus procurement that's out at the moment, but I believe it's part of their long-term plan, absolutely. but I don't have the timing.
Okay, but as part of the, we're in partnership with them on procurement. So we were gonna procure 60-footers, or some 60-footers, and they were not?
Thanks for the question. We've adopted the TTC procurement for the 40-foot buses. There are options available to us for 60-foot buses, like Metrolinx also has a joint procurement. So we will be reviewing all options available to us.
I'm sorry, I missed that last.
Yeah, maybe I can, okay, let me take it. Thank you. So for the electric one, we have an agreement with TTC. It's the same LRFP. It's only 40-foot e-buses,
Okay.
only. So TTC and us will buy 40-foot buses, either with Nova or No Flyers. We have with Metrolinx a whole LRFP, and we can buy some 60 diesel buses. TTC just purchased a certain number, and we will purchase maybe a certain number. But for now, discussion with Metrolinx and New Flyers, it's not before Q4 2026, which is late for us. So that's why we are exploring other options.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yep, no, that's, thank you. That is good to know. So TTC is not necessarily moving ahead. They don't have any firm plans for the acquisition of 60-foot buses at this point.
Electric, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, those were the questions I had. Yeah, again, I am wholly on board with going electric. You have brought test results to us time and time again that demonstrate that these buses are more than capable of operating in Ottawa's climate, that they will save significant operating dollars. I know in places like Kitchissippi that have very busy bus corridors like Holland Avenue to and from Tunney's Pasture, we are eagerly awaiting the electrification of the fleet to make that a quieter neighborhood. But if we're going to experience a hiccup in the meantime, and risk capacity for any extended period of time, then I would love to hear how you're going to address that in the short term. All right, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Menard.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for the discussion today. I'm aligned with everyone else on the commission too, just in terms of our capacity. That the articulated, the 60-footers, they really take a big chunk of that load, and I guess they're 40% of our fleet, as I understand it, and I know we're moving. The report talked about moving that the 60-footers would only be 15% of our fleet in the future. But in the meantime, there's a real need for those 60-foot buses. And it's not just on the routes that were mentioned, although I agree with Mr. Scrimger, those routes are of key concern, but the 6, the 7, these are very important routes that 60-footers have been added to on a more regularity, and residents have benefited from those additions, and I wouldn't want to see that go away. I was pleased, Chair, to see the zero emission bus performance targets. We are exceeding targets. They are lasting longer between interruptions than expected. Slightly longer than our diesel buses, and so there's a lot of positives that we're seeing coming out of that testing. So looking forward to getting those zero emission buses in further than the 3 and 4 we have now. But certainly from a capacity standpoint, I want to make sure, as others do on commission, that we are procuring buses for those 60-foot the lines we need them on. And I do have a question about whether or not OC TRANSPO is looking at buying. Is it used buses we would be buying to procure to kind of meet the demand, or is it new buses we would be buying to meet that demand in the short term?
Chair, we're looking actually at both options, and whichever option makes more sense for our operation that can be faster and more economical. There are disadvantages, again, to both options. The problem with buying used buses is availability, and the same thing for any other municipality. If the buses are not in good shape, they're decommissioning them because of that. So it's hard to find a bus in a good shape. However, if we find buses in a good shape that are made of stainless steel instead of just steel, it's a lot better for us to refurbish those buses than the buses we have currently.
That's great to hear about the operation standpoint that you're looking at that, because I think it makes a lot of sense to look at used and or new, depending on the finances associated with it. But definitely we need that capacity. So that's appreciated. I did want to just talk about if we are moving our fleet to having only 15% of the longer buses, articulated 60-foot buses in total. This would necessitate a change, I think, to frequency on some of those routes that need it in the future, right? So if we're replacing 60-foot buses with 40-foot buses, will the frequency increase on some of those routes to make up for that demand?
Mr. Chair, if there end up being any cases where that kind of replacement is needed or is appropriate, then that's what would happen. But for the most part, it will be train extensions that replace the 60-foot buses.
Okay, that's good to hear. On the 60-foot kind of electrification, has the city looked at trolley buses in for any routes? Has that been a consideration at all for the 60-footers?
Mr. Chair, there was a very detailed technology review brought to the last term of council that led to council's direction to look into battery electric buses. That technology scan looked at delivering electricity to buses through quite a number of ways, including hydrogen, including trolley buses. And we can provide a link back to that technology scan if required.
Okay, no, it's appreciated. Just want to make sure we're meeting that demand with the capacity necessary for those routes that have those 60-footers. So thanks everybody for the conversation and to staff for the answers.
Okay, Councillor Hill, round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to follow up on brakes. In the March 24 report, you noted the issue with the end-of-life brake sensors failing prematurely, which was resolved by removing and replacing the system. In 24, you noted issues with the ABS sensors and the brake chambers. Are any of these separate issues with the braking system connected with each other?
Thanks for the question. Yes, those are two separate issues. The one that we reported in March was an added system that is considered redundant. That was removed part of the next round of procurement. These defects that we recognize now is just lining up our preventive maintenance correctly, the timing.
Okay, and how common are these kinds of issues with brakes in the diesel fleet? Is there any unique factors to the electric buses, or is this particular manufacturer that could be adding additional wear and tear to the brake system?
Chair, in general, it differs from, even within the diesel fleet, it differs from bus type to bus type. However, in general, sensors are not necessarily the best technology to have. They do fail often. So yes, there's a great benefit to having sensors, but it's added technology that is not always the best. So, and in the diesel fleet's case, a lot of them were added after fact, so after production, and that's not always the best case.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. More of a clarifying comment than questions. My last round, I said that, I hope, the train won't solve everything. The train will solve a lot. But when we're looking at the 75, for example, coming out of Barrhaven, Councillor Hill and I were there at Battlefield Station on yesterday morning. When you look at the articulated buses now coming out of Barrhaven full, that's the equivalent capacity requirements of two 40-footer buses. And if we're going to spread that out, that's going to be an extra 10-minute wait, 12-minute, whatever frequency we end up with in the future. And that's going to impact sort of that transit experience, especially when you get to a main station. Like everyone gets off at Algonquin Station. You have a group of passengers who can get on a bus, and then you have another group who are stuck there for the next 10, 15 minutes. So, but the thing is, financially, if you look at it financially, that's two buses, that's two drivers, two vehicles to maintain, and possibly more maintenance staff. So I hope if this whole electric bus thing with 60-footers goes south, I really hope we quickly look at some, like it's Council Hill's direction says, I really hope we quickly look at some other articulated bus options this, in spite of the lead time that we know is there. So it's just more of a clarifying comment for something I said earlier. Thank you.
Councillor Leopard.
Thanks. I want to make it clear on my side that I don't believe that if we run into a capacity crunch, that we will increase frequencies. We are in the process right now of reducing bus service. The new ways to bus represents fewer hours of bus service on the road. The option, if we run into a capacity crisis, would absolutely be there to increase frequency, but that would cost more. And I'm very cynical that this council would invest the necessary resources in order to increase frequencies to make up that lost capacity. So I want to make it clear that I'm watching this issue, very concerned about it unless this council makes a determination to better invest in our transit system. Thank you.
Any other questions? I want to ask a quick one, because we spent a lot of previous meetings on this and this one on the actual buses and on the electricity infrastructure and new garages. I think this is the first time where we've had a lot of detail on the software and IT component. How big of a risk is that? We often run into issues with rollout of new software. Is there anything at this point that would suggest that's a major risk to the deployment?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So the energy management software is being delivered by Envari as part of their deliverables for the EBUS program. There's always risk in onboarding new software. You know, I don't have a sense right now of that risk, but you know, this is brand new to us, and so we will have to integrate it into our processes and understand, you know, the security aspect, and you know, do all of the things we do for critical large new systems.
As we stand, though, it's on track and on schedule to where it needs to be.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks for the update. It's an important update. I think colleagues have raised some reasonable concerns. It's a challenging, the environment that we're in when it comes to electric buses is really challenging, right? We've got a whole transportation industry that's transforming from fossil fuel to electric and other technologies. We have federal and provincial and state governments doing financial incentives and policy incentives that are pushing transit systems to convert as quickly as possible. And then we have suppliers who are really challenged to meet that demand. And then we're asking OC TRANSPO to be responsible in their fleet management when we have ridership that's very much in flux right now. So appreciate the challenges. And I think we all appreciate the regular updates on where you're at. And if there's anything you need from council in terms of direction or support to help you move quickly and efficiently, we definitely want to know about that and ready to support you on that. So is this report received by committee?
Received.
Received. Thank you. Thanks for the update. We have no in-camera items today. There's one IPD that's part of the agenda, which we'll speak more on in the spring, I'm sure. Any notices of motion today?
I have the inquiries. I'm
You
not
have
sure if you
inquiries?
received
Okay.
3 of those.
So on inquiries, you have a few.
I have 3
You have 3
related to today's discussion.
Okay.
So if you
Eric will
present
get it
those
up on screen.
And I want to thank Eric, by the way. He makes my grammar sound goodish. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Get your headphones on. All right. Due to the continued, this is a, inquiry. Due to the continued open access to the terminus station at Blair with the $205 fine to cross the transitway, and of course to fare avoidance, it's $260 for fare evasion. What immediate and long-term actions can be taken? You can see the photo below of the open gate access. That's one inquiry. So thank you. The second one's related to in regards to the safety at the platforms. So provide information in regards to the LRT platforms. One, the number of special constables that we have and how they're distributed amongst the transit stations volumes, incident-based, and two, the number of incidents and or calls for each platform in the year of 2024 until now. And last but not least, I've kept them short, Mr. Chair. Due to the urgent nature for 60-foot buses, please provide monthly updates or as soon as the opportunity presents itself to acquire used fleet for as the new buses would not be available till Q4 2026, even if we ordered today. Furthermore, provide the number of operational 60-foot articulated buses and their years of service. And last, please provide the number of double deckers that are still operating and how this fits in with the plan not to acquire any future double decker buses in relation to high capacity. I think you've answered a lot of that, but if we can get that back in writing, I truly appreciate that. And thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say the first paragraph there is, I think, more directive than inquiry. So would staff take that as direction, to provide monthly updates as available?
This is okay, correct,
Okay.
but sometimes we'll say we don't have any update, right?
Okay. Thank you. Any other inquiries? And we have no other business today, so we are adjourned and our next meeting is November 18th. Thank you, everyone.